line and someone with much more determination. I'm too lazy to lie to people. I just don't want to deal with it.
That's a very humble perspective on a kind way to say that.
Well, just if you feel like you have to lie about things, try not to live that way. Then you don't have to lie about it. There you go. Easy breezy.
Yeah.
Told you I'm lazy.
I have a feeling we're going to have a very interesting conversation today. So if both of you are feeling ready, the first thing that we always do is start with a breath. So I'll count it down 3, 2, 1. Take a deep breath. When we're done, I'll give a quick introduction. We'll go from there. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Unscripted Room. Tonight's episode is characters and stories, but we thought that it would be fun for us to be able to explore this from a slightly different angle, which is, what does it mean to have character? And then once you have character, what does that mean to the way that it influences all of our stories? So we've got an awesome panel. We already had a fun conversation to get to this point, and I think that this is going to be a really interesting conversation. If you want to kick us off with our first question, we can get going.
Okay.
We're starting at like max speed with this question here, guys. So we're going to have to jump in deep together.
Okay. The first question. What does it mean to live with character? Okay. You know what? I'm going to look at the other one. All right. So
what does it mean to the two of you? What does it mean when you hear somebody say living with character? How do you try to live with character? What would you define your character as being? I mean, we can start with any of these things, right?
I used to think character meant your job.
Okay.
Or like what you wear. And there's series and series of digging and perfecting these skills, having a job and wearing the most colorful or, tucked in shirts. You get burnt out and then you just wear nothing and then you quit your job. That's the true test of character.
Is being naked?
Naked? Poetically, physically?
I do want to point out
that this is the second time that you've had a naked story.
You are very well dressed and your shirt is nicely tucked. I just want to say. So
I guess I could say I have found my character with the clothes I wear don't matter as much as what I'm getting to or the occupation. Character takes time, and when you look at yourself, it's always weird. Not so much in the mirror, but all that you've done, look through a journal or listen to someone tell you who or what you are. It's always weird, at least for me. I'm like, or you're getting complimented by a lot of people or ridiculed. It's a weird thing. It goes against natural instinct. Like, this is what I am. This is who I am. In your perspective, I have my own. But
can I ask a couple questions about that? Because I'm really curious about you. You're a very interesting person. I've heard a lot about you before you came onto the podcast. And everything that I've heard about you is that you beat to your own drum, right? And that is so cool. It's a very unique skill.
Drums.
Yeah.
nice.
real drum.
So here's
awesome.
the question. Like when to beat to your own drum means you also have to understand your rhythm in comparison to what everybody wants that rhythm to be. So where in your life have people tried to change you? And how did you have to figure out how to hold your ground on being yourself? Like where did those things happen? Because it seems unlikely that wouldn't have happened to you.
Mm. Well, first of all, my name's Ebo. And I've had an upbringing with very loose, mellow, dramatic parents. And I had an older sister, and that was the time I spent building my characters with my family. And I had a few good friends, a few bad ones. But consistently, throughout the years of developing, I mean, I'm 21 now, and I don't know if it ends, but I've had people.
It does. I'm sorry.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, eventually. Sorry. Spoiler.
Talk about long road here, but yes.
Yeah, long road, but it does end.
Well, the thing is that I'll go on a walk and in the woods, right? Real Thoreau style. And in that kind of retreat and serenity, you will hear echoes, especially in my family. It got loud, and friends got loud, and life gets loud.
Mm-hmm.
When you go immediately into a serene environment, it's not as peaceful. It's really the echoes ricocheting off your brain, like all that just happened. But if you give it a minute more and keep breathing, you'll begin to hear yourself again. And I'm just lucky because I had nature by me, and I had the beach, the woods. I still do. So I guess with people in my family and friends telling me where I should be and what path to align with, it was not until I listened to myself that I was happier.
So when the noise goes down,
Yeah.
what do you tell yourself? What is it to be Ebo? Like, what's the core there? Because I think that's kind of what character is too, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the code that you live by?
Surfing, eating, sleeping. It's so simple.
Do you live by like the surfer philosophy, sort of like up with the dawn, that kind of like tidal, cyclical aspect to your life?
I guess once you get a taste of it, then you're hooked.
Hmm.
And even out there, it can be like a really rough day, like it was today out in the Atlantic, but it's still so serene. And I think part of the surfer philosophy is these, like I said, loud lives we can let go by for so long. But if you have your retreat, surfing to me is such a retreat. Walking in the woods, like I always needed these. I don't know about you guys.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I think
Yeah.
the theme for last night's episode was the noise between us. And so the focus of that conversation was more like, first of all, what is the noise? Which I think is exactly what you're talking about. It's that echo that you're hearing, where it's, when you're in amongst a lot of people, everybody's opinions are something that you're supposed to filter all the time. And then you start worrying about their opinions about you, and it gets to be loud. But then when you get into a place that's quiet, you go for a walk in the woods, you go surfing, you get both the existential side of being alone and what that feels like to sometimes be lonely when you're in those environments. But then it also can very quickly turn into feeling like you're not alone. You're in something beautiful. You're a part of something larger, and those voices can become more clear because of that. I think everybody experiences those things to some degree. I just don't think that we talk about it enough to make it something that feels approachable and like you can access it all the time. And then there are a few people in the world who are accessing it all the time. I think that's part of what surfer culture is like, fuck the normal routine of what we do on a daily basis. Like what would be, if the goal of life is to live your best version of it, then how do you wake up every day, eat? What was your mottos? Wake up, eat,
Surf,
surf,
go for a walk,
go back to bed again.
back to bed, repeat.
Yeah, that's kind of what the actual routine is. So
Yeah, man, leaves start to collect when you're in the cog in the wheel, and someone who's seen the other side. I mean, you can't ever tell who's walking by you. It could be a prophet or a bum or both at the same time. And I've learned that because some of the funniest looking people, smelliest looking people, most tired, most annoying, or just kindest people have surfed beside me. So to be out in my safe space with all walks of life has been a really a gift to understanding myself. And speaking of character, you are who you're around, your environment. So I guess Ebo as a idea or character is who he's around or not around.
I
So far.
also think that that's really interesting, the way that you just described yourself. Like that you described yourself from outside of your own body. Like that you assigned a character to yourself and you're aware that you were doing it. That's a unique language model of not very many people are able to use that language in that way. All right, so how about for you? Like how, when you think about character at the base, like what do you think defines your character?
I have a question for you. Are we allowed to? When we say character, are we assigning an inherent morality to that, a goodness, a good character? Is that when we say like that person's got character? It's like the way I think of it is strength and good qualities. So is that sort of where we're going with that?
I think we should follow that discussion
Okay,
to wherever
sure.
we should, right? Like we should define together as a group, do we think that to have character is inherently positive? Or is it possible that somebody could develop a sense of character that is repugnant to the people who have to deal with them?
I would say that the through line through that is substance versus surface. Personality, or I mean, not even personality. Just I see this a lot in sort of modern conversation. The mistaking liking something for having a personality, and then mistaking one step further, mistaking a personality quirk for having character.
Yeah.
I would say that when I think of character, it's deeper. It's the more foundational. Like if you ever seen Inside Out, it's the core memory stuff. It's the foundational aspects of you. So the primary colors of what make up a person. It's not, in my opinion, inherited or nature. It's something that is developed. You develop and enhance and enrich or degrade your character over the years, and it's both a true and honest assessment of who you really are and your behavior. It's both internal and external. Right. Character is how you behave, in my mind, in extreme situations, when you're tested, when you're not comfortable. That's when you say, you see somebody's true character.
Right, when their back is against the wall.
So it seems to me like it's a deeper sense of the self. We're talking about somebody's core qualities, bravery, compassion, empathy, love, violence, sociopathy. Those are character elements, as opposed to chatty, off-putting. Those are more like personality.
Right, and people identify with those personalities, I would say oftentimes to the point where they almost feel like a character when you're talking to them.
Well, I would say that you don't truly meet someone's character until you've known them for a while, and there are plenty of people in our lives, most people, I'd say that we have at least an acquaintanceship to, we never see their character. Not really, because character, I think, is only revealed to others honestly through testing. You can tell someone what your character is. We all know those really brave dudes that are like, well, if I had been there, I would have done something about it. And then you put them in a situation where they can speak up, and all of a sudden it's, well, I couldn't then. You understand rationalizations. It's character, I think, is only revealed through a sort of crucible testing. You can tell people what your character is and hope that they believe you, but over time they'll see it for themselves. It's also, I think, very hard to hide from people character.
Yeah, both having it and lacking it.
Yeah, there's like it affects how you interact with the world. It's the kind of the base filter through which you process your decision making. And it's reputational. Once your character is exposed to the world, the story writes itself after that. Something comes out about you, about your character, so to speak, and that's all people really need to know. So it is like something I think that is hidden or has to be gotten to.
I think one of the fundamental questions for tonight in general, and this is, I would just like to explore this between the three of us, but I guess the question would be that if you don't focus on building your sense of self around practicing having character, is it possible to not become a character?
That's your character.
I'd say those are very different things.
Yeah.
Becoming a character and having character.
Right. So
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
I think those are like in
Yeah.
my mind, guys, for the time that we have tonight, like those are the most interesting things that we can try to explore together, because we probably like, and maybe we even start with the three of us just talking about what do we consider to be character. Like when you think about what it is that is important to you that you want to build on a day-to-day basis, what is our moral hierarchy of the way that we try to figure that out in our own code of like, what is it that I want to bring to the world every day? I can certainly give an example of where I've gotten lost in my life. I remember when I was younger, feeling like a lot of the interactions that I wanted to have, I wanted people to think that I was a nice guy. So it led me
Sure.
to do a lot of like really passive aggressive communication. And then I would like absorb stuff that maybe I shouldn't have been absorbing all the time. And then I would
People pleasing at all?
people pleasing all the time. And but to not because I was actually trying to please that person, but because I had some sort of ulterior motivation that I was trying to figure out, that if I could get them to be pleased with me for some reason, that I was going to get what I wanted to solve on the other side. So the whole idea that I was trying to play this character of a nice guy was false, and it was false in both directions, right? Like I wasn't actually being a nice guy, and I don't know that it was interpreted on the other side, but
It's all right. We've been there.
if you focus on being kind, that's a very different thing, right? And I have found my life improve significantly since I've focused on trying to be kind to people, because that is something that you can hold yourself accountable to on both sides. You can both practice developing it, and you could actually figure out whether people are receiving your kindness in real time.
That's a great word.
Also, practicing how to spot that in people is a really important skill, to look past someone's rough edges on the exterior to their kindness, which is more substantive. Nice people have nice manners. Kind people show up. But it's like not always easy to tell on the outside. I think we're drawn to people who present themselves well and have good manners and make us feel flattered. But kindness, like character, is on a deeper level, and it takes time to really feel someone's kindness, and it comes out oftentimes in moments of duress.
I think it does. I think you're right. I think it comes out in duress. But I would also, you said something earlier, which it didn't sound like duress to me, but it did sound like you had met somebody that you thought was genuinely kind, which is that you were out on your surfboard, just out there in the ocean, out in the epicness of of what that feels like, and you were next to people who maybe were overlooked for other reasons that you found extraordinary kindness in. What was it that you felt in those waves? Like, why did you interpret that person in that way?
Well, you see, my buddy had gotten slammed on the shore this is today.
Okay.
And it was like, 6-footer, but they were strong, really, really strong. And can you imagine laughing at first, oh, you just got slammed, and then you're worried. And so I'm looking for my buddy, and here comes someone I've never seen before paddling over on a board. And he's like, dude, your buddy just got slammed. Like, is he okay? And surfers don't always step in.
Yeah.
In fact, we like to be alone. Like, it's not always a social time. I've caught myself being like too loud and out there. But he comes up to me and he's like, go check on if he's still alive. And I did, and it was like a nod,
Oh, it's good, man. Yeah, that shared humanity. Exactly. We don't need to know anything about each other, but we're connected in there because we feel.
I one time, there's a language to the way that works that's unique within every culture. There's also a unique language to the way that that men can do that with each other sometimes. I was sitting in a parking lot maybe like a week ago, getting ready to go into a hot yoga class.
Nice.
And I was waiting, and these two dudes that were like, one of them looked like they had worked in a gym next to it, and the other guy pulled up on a motorcycle, and they were clearly exchanging the motorcycle. They were exchanging helmets, and then the guy who was getting off the motorcycle was giving the guy who was getting on all of these instructions of what to do, and like, how this motorcycle rode and the things to be, to watch for. And I thought, man, I grew up in motorsports, so I had race cars, and I'm not good on a motorcycle, but I understand the culture of riding motorcycles to some degree. And I was like, that wouldn't look like it to most people, but that's actually kind of like a conversation about love that's happening between these two dudes right here, because that guy is genuinely concerned that he doesn't get on this motorcycle and not understand what a beast
man.
he's riding right
We were
now.
raised by boomers. We know how to spot love in men who don't know what that word means.
It was kind of cool to watch, because it wasn't like
sure.
Neither one of them were like saying anything, but even like the fist bump on the way out, you could tell that this guy really cared about the fact that this other guy, he didn't want him to get hurt. He wanted to make sure that he was in a good place before he went. I thought, man, what a wonderful thing that we're capable of being able to speak to each other on so many different levels, that it doesn't always mean that you have to like find the right word all the time. Sometimes it's just you got to go up to somebody and be like, hey, listen, if you're not paying attention to the fact that your friend just got slammed, get your shit together, man. Go like check on your friend, be that guy. And all of a sudden he woke something up in you, apparently, right? Because you went and checked on your friend.
Oh yeah, I took a wave in, and he's lying flat on the sand, like, oh, I'm not going back out. He was okay, like motor functionally, but he little shocked.
Got slammed.
Yeah, he got slammed.
He got slammed.
I'm glad he's okay. When you were talking about the difference between becoming a character and having character, it kind of reminds me of, you're familiar with the Bushido code and samurai? Okay, so in feudal Japan, there was the samurai culture, and they didn't all live this way, but there was a Japanese form of chivalry called Bushido. And I hope I'm getting this right, but I think it was written by a guy named Musashi Miyamoto.
That sounds right.
He wrote, great. Nice, thank you. So he stated in there, and I'm paraphrasing because my Middle Ages Japanese is pretty rusty these days, but it was essentially when you are in a tavern, if there's a loud braggart drunk and he's, challenging people to fights and being like, I'm the strongest man here, don't worry about that guy. Mm-hmm. That guy is terrified. He's screaming all of those things because he wants you to not challenge, to like back down. Look at the guy leaning against the rail whose eyes have never stopped moving and hasn't opened his mouth. That's the person you keep your eye on. And I think that's the difference between becoming a character and having character. There's a level of confidence with knowing who you are and knowing, flaws and all, who you are and what you are, what your capabilities are and what your limitations are. Knowing that there's some flexibility there, but you kind of understand the basic parameters. There comes confidence with that. And you realize I don't need to stand up and shout my greatness to everyone. I can just bring it when it's required. Mm-hmm. If not, great. You stop seeking the approval, or you start to ask, whose approval do I really want? And maybe some of the people that think are giving me their approval aren't the people I want approving of me, that kind of thing. But
if we stop there for a second, who do you think is the approval that we want in those moments?
Oh gosh, that's a very personal thing, right? Depends on the kind of person you're trying to become. For me,
yeah, for you, like when you get into those moments, what are the kinds of things that you lean on to try to figure out?
Oh, okay.
Like who is it that we're trying to please when we come into these intersections of, do I go left, do I go right? Who should we be trying to negotiate that?
I'm very lucky. I have an actual counsel that I can go to. I don't mean to make anybody sad, but I have a trinity. My father, my grandfather, and my best friend have all passed. Mm-hmm. They are, in my mind, or in my experience, they were the three of the best people I knew. And I knew them all from a very formative age. So
can you describe why you thought that they were so great?
Sure.
I think that would be really interesting.
My father taught me bravery and compassion. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was the archetype of masculinity without any of the toxicity. He was a strong veteran. He was beautiful, muscly, brilliant, kind, patient. All of the manly, old school manly stuff of
gentle.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. He was a feminist who would never have used that word. You know what I mean? He was raised by strong women. Mm-hmm. So he just wanted everybody taken care of and on equal ground. Mm-hmm. I think without knowing the language, he was the person who taught me what equity was as opposed to equality. And my best friend, Dana, I wouldn't be who I am without her. She introduced me to some of my very favorite things in life, some of the things I've spent my life pursuing knowledge of and experience of, horror movies, horror novels, all that stuff. It's like the biggest thing for me. I don't know why I'm saying that, like you all know that, but
I knew that.
I host a podcast called Terror in Tandem. It's all about that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, you can say anything you want.
You can.
Terror in Tandem. Terror in Tandem.
But
Check it out.
so what I mean to say by those three people, by having them, there are three people that I deeply respected in life.
Yeah.
Not romanticizing them after death. If anything, I feel like I've come to know them really well by examining their shortcomings in life and their flaws. The Japanese call that kitsuge, the sort of highlighting the flaws of a broken vase by
It's
piece of
pronounced kintsugi.
kitsuge.
Like the vases.
Yeah,
gold.
exactly. Using gold so that you don't hide the flaws. These were three people that did that. They taught me growth. So the way that I live, real simple. If I ever have like sort of a question on something, I just think, okay, if I were called to judgment at this moment, and I am an atheist, I want to stress that, but if I were called to judgment in this moment, could I stand before those three people and hold my head high and answer for myself? And if the answer is ever, no, I don't know, I don't do that thing. These folks don't make decisions for me, but they gave me everything I needed to build on that foundation. And that is kind of my strict rule in life is if I were to be zooped right up, raptured or whatever, and put in front of those three people that I greatly admired and respected, would I feel ashamed of myself?
Yeah.
Or would I go, hey guys, did my best.
Yeah.
Didn't always nail it. But in those moments where I fell short, I did my best to make it right and to own up to what I did. It's a big thing for me. If I can do that, then I'm pretty sure I'm okay. You know, I feel confident that I'm not doing anything to either side of anything too horrific.
Well, it sounds like you let love guide you. You know what I mean? You take
Yes.
three people who you love and that represent a characteristic that is part of the reason why you fell in love with them. And then, you know, love is the guide to making sure that you try to
But
figure
it
out
was
how to...
also decades of proving to me.
Sure.
You know, it's the sort of thing that if you've been in a relationship for a long time, been married for 15 years, and you realize like there are certain things you can only have after 10 to 15 years. You know, there are certain like to universalize though, like secret items that unlock deeper into a relationship, and there are no shortcuts to that. You know what I mean? So like you have to go through every second of every moment of every 10 years, and then a new phase of your relationship unlocks, and you go, my God, that is the most precious drop that I've ever seen, and you won't give it up for anything. So yeah, I think.
What do you think that those layers are? Are they layers of vulnerability? How would you describe what it is that you're gaining over a longer period of time?
It's the difference between telling somebody you'll do a thing and watching them do it without thinking about oh gosh. The moment I fell deeply in love with my wife, we were very good friends. And I did like her, but I remember at that time my father had just died, and I was really nervous about meeting this new girl that I'm like, I'm a grieving wreck, you know, punishing myself and going through all this. I was only 25. And so I was really afraid of like, don't come near me. You're the like coolest girl I've ever met. So I had to go on a trip somewhere, and I was living like a depressed person. My room was like really messy, and you know, it was like curtains drawn, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I came back from this trip, and my brother had let her in. My brother and I were living together, and she cleaned my room. She hung up this poster that I had like rolled up in the corner for a year or something. And I want to stress, we were very good friends at this point, so it wasn't like weird that she was in my apartment, you know, like that's fine. But seeing that was the moment I realized you can tell somebody you love them and you can say beautiful things and write them a sonnet, but this is where it's at. That was character. That like took hours to do because it was like gross in there, man. Not like, with nail and eye or anything, but it was really messy and sad. And if like you went into your friend's place looking like that, you'd be like, oh, dude,
Yeah.
you're not doing so well, huh? And that was a true showing of character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she didn't do that with any real like expectation. So that's kind of what I mean of you can only get those revelations about somebody after, you've earned them, I guess, or you've put in some time.
Well, there's a couple things that you just said that I think are really interesting for us to explore. One is that the three of us could figure this out, but it feels like generosity might be the highest degree of character that you can witness in somebody else. Someone who is
the greatest city in America.
Someone who is willing to be generous without looking for anything in return, that they have reached a level of, I don't know what the right term for this is, but maybe enlightenment is the right term for it, where they've become enlightened enough in being themselves that they actually understand that the feeling that they get from being generous is possibly the best feeling that you can have.
That's it. That's the thing is we don't have to make it sound so like noble and self-sacrificing. It makes everything better. Give a little, get a lot. If you don't want to do it for just the pure act of doing something nice for somebody, it makes you feel really good. It improves relationships.
Yes.
And it engenders trust, and it's earning.
Well, and it's very, very important to understand, too, that the key of this is that you can't expect anything in return.
Yes.
And the problem is that
exactly.
right now, a lot of people, I think, one of the things that we've understood as we've done more of these podcasts is that for all of us, I'm definitely including this. I don't know if the two of you would agree this is something that you have gone through as well, is that whether it's our nurture or our nature, we seem to be very addicted to trying to be right. Like every time something comes up, it feels like immediately there's something about us that's like, I gotta choose a side, and then I gotta be passionate about that side to defend the honor of my belief system. Mm-hmm. When in reality, the longer you live, the more you start to realize that like that is kind of a zero-sum game. There's not really a lot of winners at the end of that, because unfortunately for you to be right, you have to find someone else to be wrong. It's the only way that right can exist. So on the other end of that, if we started thinking about like, well, what's the outcome that you want? That's where generosity becomes a lot more interesting, and it becomes a lot more interesting to do it without needing anything in return, because then it's not transactional. It's not like, I'll do something for you, but I'm only going to be cool with you in the future if I make sure that I get something of equal or greater value in return.
Right.
Whereas if I'm like, well, if I did something because I'm capable of doing something for you,
desirelessly,
and then I assume that good energy might get paid forward to somebody else, and my world just is more abundant with good energy because I'm putting it out there to the degree that I can. You seem like a guy who's like walking around putting out positive energy all the time. Do you feel like it comes back to you in interesting ways? Like, have you ever seen a ripple effect that caught you in a way you didn't think it would?
Oh yeah, man. One time I burped in like my room. Like I burped, right?
Yeah.
And then you're presented with any smell.
Just the one time?
Well, I've burped many times, but this was a holy burp, you could say.
Nice.
And I was in my room on my computer and headphones off. So my full sense of smell was there. And when I burped, I smelt an edible I ate in like 8th grade. And so by this point, I'm like a senior in high school. And I just realized like all that time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought about this ripple effect, I'll get to. And because of that edible and because of that burp, I was then fully present. Like, I was like, yo, I'm still alive after that edible. And even though I remember taking the edible, I thought I was going to die. I really don't like those things. I prefer.
Talk to us about what that experience was when you were in 8th grade. That's young to take an edible. Not even judging whether you should or you shouldn't, but your mind is a fragile thing in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So an edible in 8th grade can send you on a wild trip.
Mm-hmm.
What was your trip? What was it like?
Dude, I just got fried. I was snowboarding, and I actually, it really did significantly help me be more brave on the slopes.
Okay.
They were all icy. You know how it is.
Yeah, I know how it is.
But after all these bruises, I could physically see it. I couldn't feel them. So that was the only beneficial part. Other than that, my thoughts were very anxious and spiraling, and it didn't have the greatest effect on me. But if I never did that, I wouldn't have burped the 8th grade edible in high school. So I was like, that shit sucked in 8th grade. And now it rocks now. So it was like this reflection forced upon me from my body. And it's so significant. This probably is like, how did he burp an edible? It's such a significant taste that gets stuck in you, and scent, and you never forget scents as humans. It's awesome. You know, some of them are nostalgic and wonderful. This one was like, oh man, that edible. But you know, I realized the time had passed, and in a way I never have before. So
You know what's interesting about you, Ebo,
Hmm.
is you
tell me.
both simultaneously while you're talking. I'm trying to figure out whether what you're saying is nonsensical because you're being funny, which you are funny. I am enjoying you. But then I also feel like you're right on the edge of saying something deep and interesting at any given time that I want to give you just a little bit more space to be able to understand you, because I think that
Oh.
you're bumping into interesting philosophy stuff here. But you're
too.
doing it in a way through a comedian's voice. Is that your voice? Is that how you figured out how to be able to interpret the world, is through like making, not taking it so seriously that you can kind of find that voice in between?
It is. I wouldn't even say it's something I purposely do. It's really just, I hope no one gets bored, because, you know, the philosopher at the bar goes on forever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll listen to the philosopher at the bar. We were talking about my dinner with Andre. That's listening to two mansplaining, sweaty drunks going on forever. But in the beginning, you can view it as that maybe. But then when you dig in, you're invited, and you're welcome to the conversation, and it's deeper than you thought. Like, I'll have someone, a stranger, say, you know, a random dude at the gas station smoking Newports.
Mm-hmm.
And you can either walk by and, like, you know, neurodivergently avoid eye contact and get to the door as quick as possible, or you could get your vitamin water and go talk to this dude in the gas station smoking Newports, and you wouldn't even believe the stories.
Okay, so tell us the stories. That's what we're here for, is to learn from the journey that you're on, man. Like, you're doing stuff in a way that's definitely, you're finding a rhythm outside of the rhythm that everybody else is blindly walking through on a regular basis. What are you seeing when you step out of that rhythm? What did the dude, the Newports, tell you? What did you learn?
I guess he'll be a figure for what I've learned. I haven't actually met him yet, but there's many gas station Newport gentlemen and just people, you know, we'll use this as the figure. When I indulge in a conversation with a stranger,
Sure.
I am then sent on a quest. And you're going to need a lot of free time, but you're going to need an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
Oliver, where are you?
He's back there. Wizard of Oz is back there.
I'm
somewhere.
here, Ebo. And honestly, that I think that one sentence that you just said summarizes your character as I have seen it, which is really interesting because I feel like in my mind you're like a very fluid person, but whenever we hang out, that was like the most concise sentence I've ever heard that describes the time that we spend together. Yeah. Ebo and I have been, whenever Ebo and I endeavor to do something, we do not end up doing that thing. Very, very rarely is that the thing that happens, but we will end up, meeting someone and being pulled into some other story. And I think I've talked to you about this, Brett, but the idea that everyone that you meet is like a side quest in a video game,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I try and live when I'm socializing with people.
But it's a video game where you don't have 3 lives or something. Like, you don't respawn. So that the temporary effect, the mortal reminder of it all, can give you a confidence and kind of stupid bravery. Like, I'm literally talking to the guy smoking Newports at the gas station. That's like who you don't talk to.
Yeah.
But what happens after is it shatters all expectations. And you may walk away with something.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you guys are describing is being young, and that you both think that you're invincible, and you both have been living lives where you've lived in places where when you tap up against something that is the unknown, it can be super exciting to figure out what that is.
Yes.
But there's another side of the unknown too, which is it can be really dangerous. That guy with the Newports could be a great guy and bring you on a side quest that's the best quest of your life, or he could be somebody who's waiting for somebody who looks like they don't know what he knows, and take advantage of that in some ways.
I was thinking about what we learned from somebody like around the story they tell, because just based on some of the adventures you've been relaying, I get a sense of the kinds of neighborhoods you've been having these adventures in. And I would say they probably seem like okay and safe places to have those adventures. But yeah, for sure, those are specific experiences that, when applied universally, might lead to some different outcomes. Unexpected.
You never know. This is gut instinct you have to use, right?
Okay.
But it's also pushing a little farther than you've gone before, because gut instinct may have worked before,
Mhm.
and then it'll use that information and say, oh, don't do that again. Don't do that ever again. But if you can go a little farther and test the water, you'll be surprised. Like, I was homeless in Hawaii for 5 days because I continuously missed the bus to the farm I had to work on to keep living and, eat and sleep in a tent. Great idea, by the way.
Which is like only slightly not homeless.
Slightly not home. Exactly. It was through WOOFing, World Organic Organization of Farming, where you work to stay. Anyways, I missed the bus. And in this case, I'm in the town of Kaunakakai. Exactly. No one knows what that is. It's on the island of Molokai in Hawaii. Sleepiest town. It's not the main island. It's the forgotten island. And no one's bothering you there, and no one wants to be bothered. Me, a haole, which is what they call a non-local, wandering around with a backpack, Kraft mac and cheese, seashells, a journal, a little bit of coconut water. I am now in the unknown. But like you said, being young, you have an invincibility.
Yeah.
You get away with a lot more.
Yeah. It's a great time to learn.
Sure is.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping in softball dugouts, skate parks, the beach, the sands. But I was then forced out of my comfort zone. I had to talk to locals, people who my gut instinct was like, do not. And through this, it shattered my expectation.
What was your gut instinct telling you about the locals in Hawaii?
Well, honestly, they're very friendly shaped. And so we judge people off, what they look like.
What's a friendly shape? I'm sorry.
A friendly shape is like they got sea salt stained hair. They got a big smile. They're well fed. They just look like they want to hug you.
Okay.
These are Polynesian Native Hawaiian people. And
Friendly shaped people.
yes, friendly shaped and friendly, their character.
Yeah, for sure.
I go up to a man named Uncle Ames. And he's Uncle Ames because everyone older is uncle and auntie. Like, everyone wants to be auntie and uncle. Uncle Ames is sitting half out of a truck bed selling fish with an ukulele. Not a ukulele. I learned it's ukulele. And he's just smiling and playing that thing. He's got big old shades on. And I have a guitar with me, which is like a universal language. This would be like the beacon to the right people. When you have a guitar, you are guided to cool places. He's like, hey, brother, come over here, man. Let me tune that thing for you. Because, he knows I'm a haole and he knows I'm in standard tuning.
Doing the voice and everything. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, come here. And I thought, he's maybe selling fish or something. I don't want to be holding a fish on me. I got like 45 miles to walk this evening. But anyways, I go up to him, open the case, give him my acoustic guitar, starts tuning it by ear. I'm holding his ukulele, trying to like make a song out of it. Then he goes into what's called Hawaiian slack key tuning. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm never going to understand this. He strums it without any hand on the neck, and it's beautiful, right? It's an open tuning, so you don't have to have any work going on here. He strums it like a real SpongeBob wavy kind of sound. Gives me some sushi in a roll, and he says, "You keep learning. Come back here and play songs." I'm like, thank you. I take it, I pack up, I keep walking. Butterfly effect, man. You had to be homeless. I had to go against the gut instinct.
Can I
It was
ask
a
real
word?
quick,
Yeah.
when you were done being homeless, where did you go?
Well, I walked a long time back to the farm, and I sat down with this new tuning. You know, the people working at the farm were like, yo, you missed like 5 days of, you know, work that we had to do. We had to pick up for your mess.
So you're staying at the farm.
Yeah.
So you had a place to go back to.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was beautiful. It was like 8 acres of all
Yeah.
fruit.
Sounds really nice.
But then I made a song on that tuning about my, you know, homeless travels.
Homeless travels.
Homeless travels?
Yeah.
I think what we're getting at. So the one thing that we have to do in this room, right, is we gotta make sure that we stay unified together. You know what I mean? That we don't separate ourselves into feeling like we are anything other than on each other's team. And I think what I'm picking up in this room right now is that there might be a version of the story that you're telling that is or is not identifying any entitlements that allowed you to be able to look at the way that human nature works without having seen a super dark side of what it is. You know, like I grew up in West Newbury, Massachusetts. If anybody's ever been to West Newbury, it's a relatively soft environment in and of itself. And then I grew up in a household where I had a very gentle father, a very nice upbringing. My mom, as I told you guys before, was a librarian. What I'm trying to say is that what I've learned is that there's a massive difference between growing up soft and growing up hard. And then I've come to have intimate relationships with people who grew up hard. And the more I learned about what actually growing up hard is like and what it's like to grow up in a household that is hard, I started to realize that it forces you into 2 different difficulties that you have to deal with your entire life. When you grow up in a household that can be soft, you start to think that the whole world has the potential of being soft all the time, and it kind of leaves you in a position where you feel soft towards the world, and that creates a level of opportunity for people who want to find somebody who might be vulnerable. They gravitate towards those people because they are vulnerable, because they are a little bit naive about, you know, how the world can actually work. But then if you grow up in a hard household, the challenge is that you have to, you know, for you to live your best life, usually living your best life for the long run is not living hard for the rest of your life. That's a very difficult way to be able to survive the number of years that most people survive. So they've got to figure out how to get soft over a longer period of time. And the people who grew up soft have to figure out how to get hard over a longer period of time. You know what I mean? It's like
That's so true.
It's two opposite journeys, right?
Yeah, man.
But the problem is that you can't do either if you don't become honest with yourself, right? So if you don't look at whichever one you started with and then you figure out which vantage point are you trying to go in, you end up kind of thinking of building an identity around something that isn't actually helpful to the future version of yourself that you're trying to become. That's what I was picking up on the conversation right now.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
if it was
no,
accurate, but
I ask a lot of clarifying questions. I'm sorry.
yeah, that's good.
I guess all my travels weren't as necessarily like homeless, but just lost and far from where my sanctuary was.
Yeah.
Got that wanderlust.
Yeah. But I think the interesting question for you, and this is the question that I ask Oliver all the time because I'm fascinated by it. And I'm older, I'm in my mid 40s. I know you talked about the same thing.
Don't know
but
what
like,
you're talking about.
different time in your life. But this question is always the same. What is it that you're looking for? When you're out there wandering, what are you trying to find? And have you ever found it? And when you found it, can you describe to us what value that brought to your life?
Finding, searching, desiring, that process alone eliminates what your idea of what you're going to find. It gets farther away from you.
That's fantastic. Honest, how old are you again? Like that's
201.
that's why. That's where that wisdom comes from. No, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
So
interrupt
you
you.
can relate to that as well?
I love that answer. I think I wish I had had that mentality at your age. I really do. It came much later in life for me, that focusing on what you're getting out of something robs the beauty of what you're doing as you're doing it.
How did you develop that? What was your story? Because it was interesting to hear what his story was. What's yours to get to that same conclusion?
Just I spent too long tying my sense of worth to my work, what I did for a living, how I earned money, that kind of thing. And always on the idea of like, well, what's this leading to? What's this leading to? What's this leading to? And you, hopefully, I think you reach a point in your life where well, for me, it was the pandemic. I was working in education during the pandemic in disability services, and it was grinding and grueling because our budgets kept getting slashed and, all of that. And I burned out pretty hard on that. And I got long COVID too for like 6 months.
Oof.
Really impaired my cognitive functions. And I couldn't read for a year. I read like 40 to 50 books a year on average. And that not being able to read for a year is like, it's like losing a limb. It's weird. Yeah. I just couldn't. Words slid off the page. I couldn't read.
But you couldn't hold on to them in your brain.
Yes,
or
I would be staring at a page and just retaining nothing.
That had to be terrifying because
It
that
was
would
like
be
memento. Yeah,
that would be really hard if you felt like you didn't know if you were ever going to get it back.
Well, luckily, I'm extremely athletically gifted. No, I mean, I'm a lifelong bookish nerd. So like losing my brain was the scariest fucking thing that ever happened to me. I'm like, this better come back. I have nothing else. My personality is terrible. And I am bad at sports. And I'm like, okay looking, but I'm going to age out of that any minute now. So
Can I just say your personality is not terrible at all? I
Cheers.
really enjoyed it all night. So.
I just mean like none of that's enough to get you by, Richard. You got to get them brain cells back. But so that was the time when I did make a lot of major changes in my life. But one of those was, and thinking about my father also, who he died very suddenly when he was 52, at a moment in his life where after many, many years of struggle, it kind of seemed like maybe the light, we could see it on the horizon again. And then he dropped dead.
Oh.
So that was the way that I reacted to that over time has been to embrace that the beauty of human existence is that it is finite.
Yes.
That is what drives us to do what we do in the limited amount of time. I mean, listen, read any or see any movie about vampires. The reason they're all hedonistic monsters isn't because they have fangs. It's because they have been alive for 600 years. You can't die. You're going to do some weird shit. And I think anything that lives too long will become cruel, inevitably. It's humans' not only brief, but completely unreliable existence that grants its terrible beauty, the fear, and the majesty of it. So keeping that in mind, it's nice to walk down the street looking at the trees and looking at the birds and the patterns that the ice makes in the winter and things like that. And this is going to sound like kind of superior, and it's not what I mean by it. But then when you look around and everyone's buried in their phones, and I feel so sad for them.
Buried.
And I know from experience, obviously, that what they're getting out of that phone is not helping and enriching them. It's likely making them anxious and sad. So that's all mine does to me. Is I'm like, let's check in with the world. Oh, dear God. Everything is on fire. And the accessibility to majesty and wonder, it's like right there.
Right. It's nature. It's what you were talking about earlier. And,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yourself as well. You were talking about living for what am I going to get out of this? What's going to come? When you don't stop and look around you, you go on. I mean, you can either go on the phone or just worry about what's going to come next.
That's it's always how you know when you're talking to a philosopher, and it's tough these days because we want to optimize everything. We want to monetize everything. And the point of philosophy is have a conversation where at the end of it, we do not reach a conclusion, where we have perhaps confused ourselves to a further degree. My horizons are broadened because they had no choice with everything that we've said to each other in this evening of discussion, like ancient Greeks. My horizons had no choice but to expand to contain this. And that is, I think that's the lost art, but that's the character building that we've been talking about. You can become a character very quickly by just doing a thing. To gain character, you have to have those nights of conversation without expectation where you learn things about I have known my wife for 20 years. Be generous. And
with your conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And know when to shut up about it.
No. I didn't mean it that way. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just, you were in a flow, and I was thinking, that was what I was thinking as you were saying it.
I do that though. You have to spritz me with like.
No. I was loving what you were saying.
What you were saying was really interesting because it was in my mind, connecting to a conversation that we were sort of having post podcast yesterday. Because I think that so much of that philosophical conversation doesn't ever, you don't ever arrive at a certain conclusion. And most of those things that are in the realm of what we might call philosophy, which is kind of hard to describe exactly what that is, but most of those things we know that they're not just hard conversations, is that we've gotten to the point where we actually know that these things are beyond certainty, that they're like epistemologically unavailable to knowing. But I think it's the act of trying to explore those things, trying to think about thought experiments that might change the way that you think about something, trying to look at something from one level out further and a level out further again. That process in the conversation of philosophy is unlikely to yield a useful product, but it's the process that you practice that you then take into the rest of your life to say, well, how do I observe and think about all of these other things in a more abstract way? I just thought that it was cool to hear you say that because I feel the same way.
I would say the only pushback I'd put on that, and by the way, just quick aside, I know that people watching this see you in your booth. To us, you are a disembodied voice of wisdom.
He's Oz.
So yeah, thank you, God. And that wasn't me touching myself. I just wanted to push back. You said that sometimes that leads to an outcome that isn't valuable or whatever. And I just think that's the great thing that we've lost sight of, is that actually leads to an incredibly invaluable outcome. So if you look at the rise of what they're calling AI, I hate that term because that in itself is so disingenuous as to what the product actually is. But if you look at what is happening in that world, these companies are now in a panic hiring all of those people they tried to convince us the degrees weren't worth us. They're hiring ethicists, philosophers, moral philosophers, because they're trying to teach these amoral plagiarism machines some method or semblance of ethics that they're not getting on the Reddit threads they're scraping.
It's true. Moral philosophy does have more practical aspects.
Exactly. Well, they're also getting sued now by governments for, poisoning children. So they're saying, okay, let's pull this back. Before, Meta was caught hiring behavioral psychologists to make their product addictive to children. This all came out in the Facebook papers. But the hiring of actual genuine philosophers now to make these language models more human sounding and to change their priorities. Mm-hmm. You can't optimize humanity. I don't know. I have very limited experience with ChatGPT, but when it starts talking to me like I am some sort of fragile child that needs to be built up, I'm like, fuck you. Who are you? Who do you think I am? Like, don't talk to me that way.
Some Twilight Zone.
You're absolutely right, Richard. ChatGPT should not talk to you like that. You are so much more.
Let's keep this fun and flowing. But what I mean is the outcome that sort of character building leads to, yes, you can't quantify it on a spreadsheet, but my goodness, now that we have a lot less of it in our society, aren't we missing it?
So can I just put something out there, because I want to be really honest with the two of you, and I think it might add a richness to the conversation. I'll answer any questions that you have. But I've just spent the last 2 years, and we're about to launch our own LLM, and this LLM will manage everything that we're building, and it has been a fascinating experience. What my experience in this LLM is that it essentially made me hone in on the skills that I had been using to try to be the best father I could. So I've got my oldest son just finished his freshman year in college. My younger son is about to go into his freshman year in high school. They are unquestionably at the very top of my hierarchy of priorities in my life. And so trying to figure out how to be the best dad that I could has driven so many of the things that I've learned about the way that I tried to build my character so that I can lead in a way that maybe allows them to have an example of character in their life. But that was exactly the same process of what it was to try to build this LLM. Ours is called Y.
Mhm.
And the idea is that, it's meant to be a conversationalist that allows you to be able to have something that gets you to go deeper into your own understanding of yourself. Not that it is specifically designed to not tell you anything about yourself, but only to ask you more questions that entice you to go deeper into what you already know.
Oh, that quibble about ChatGPT, listen, people speak to you that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more, and I want to clarify, my maximalist Luddite stance on quote unquote AI is not the technology itself. It's people offloading higher human. So what we're talking about tonight, storytelling and character, I know you changed it a little bit, but that storytelling, our ability, and not only our ability, our absolute drive and need to filter reality into a story that makes sense to us in an infinite vast universe that is cold and doesn't give a shit about us and is largely trying to kill us. We filter that through storytelling. Animals do not do that. What makes humanity, I would argue, is some combination of which our storytelling is completely foundational. When these folks, I think it was a mistake to choose the weirdest drug-addled creeps on earth to be the spokespeople for this new pioneering technology. When they are out there telling me that it's going to draw Miyazaki cartoons for me and it's going to write novels for me, no, my friend, that's like saying there's no difference between a MIDI mixer and Jimi Hendrix. And, there's no difference between Mozart and Claude,
Yeah.
So that's the voluntary surrendering of what differentiates you in the known universe from anything else that exists. Voluntarily giving that to somebody who just wants to make money off of you
I couldn't agree with you more.
is the worst, grossest thing ever. Using AI to optimize a process or for medical imagery or to find some protein sequence that cures a disease, yay, that's technology that's what's supposed to do. But you're not going to replace F. Scott Fitzgerald because you can't. There have been like a billion science fiction TV episodes about you can't replace that weird thing that makes humans.
Sorry. You're bringing up some really, I think that what you're saying is something that we need to pause and talk about a little bit more, because there are a couple things that I think that we're in the midst of right now. One is that the three of us, to my knowledge, we didn't make the decision to be able to build AI. AI is happening and we're along for the ride. That's what I know. Like I'm not smart enough to be able to figure out how to build a large learning model, but I am living in a time where building a large language model is not as unattainable as it would have been if you were trying to invent it yourself. But either way, I think that we're in a place right now where we have to make a decision right now, all of us together, which is that are we going to allow AI to replace us, or are we going to allow AI to help us become the best versions of ourselves? And it can do either one of those things. But right now, almost everything that you're experiencing is going into the replacement side, and very little is going into the making sure that we have something that helps us become a better version of ourselves. And I would argue that in my experience, and I'm really curious what the two of you think, the best version of everybody that I have ever met has always been when they had the ability to be able to tap into their own creative spirit. Whatever that is, it doesn't even mean that they have to be an artist. It just means that they found some sort of creative juice that drove the passion that they had to find some level of purpose. But usually without creativity, purpose is very difficult to acknowledge, find, grab a hold of, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. I mean, we're sensory beings. So our method of relaying anything to each other is communication. Before we had written language, we had spoken language. Before we had spoken language, we had gestures and noises, and just sort of a shared understanding of when I go like that with this look on my face, it means run that way.
Yeah.
I mean, communication begets storytelling, but you look at like the origins of storytelling, we have been doing that since we were a people. Since before we had a civilization, we were drawing stories in caves of that time. We hunted this big thing. Remember that? That was awesome.
Have you read *Sapiens*?
No,
that's an interesting.
You would love that book just based on the way that you're talking.
I love reading books. All right. Okay, let's see.
You can read?
It's a new thing for me.
He got it back.
Yeah.
He got it back.
I was asking seriously.
Um,
I'm so glad you can, dude.
Thank you. Me too. It's brought me a lot of joy.
Are you writing anything?
I am. Yeah. I'm currently writing my second novel, and but I put that aside for a moment because I got a short story idea that won't leave me alone. So I'm
well, let's talk about stories, because that is part of what we were doing. And stories are so interesting because they are both a common language in which we can share generational wisdom. And they are also a clear path to being able to create a manipulated version of the past that gets seen as an actual to the future, right? So
and this is one of my big problems with the onrush of AI is certain things are not meant to be universally democratized. By that I mean universal access to the tools to create something does not make you a creator. Language, I know I'm not on the language episode, but I had this all prepared for that one.
No. Every episode is the same episode. Like if you have something that is interesting. Yeah.
What we call things is it's very important. Calling LLMs artificial intelligence, there's a reason people are calling it that. There's a reason these guys go on, these CEOs go on the shows and say, this thing is basically a god now. Because that is a really good marketing thing to say about your product. I built this thing that's basically a god. It might freak out the public, but it probably does really wonders for your investors.
Yeah.
But the language we use to tell stories about things, it used to be that we only allowed stories that broke through from a certain group of people. And there are certainly downsides to gatekeeping. I was an English major, and the curriculum for English majors up until really the time I was in college was old dead white guys from Western Europe. And they wrote some great stuff, and the Brontes. Not to say they're not worthy, they are. But even the consideration that anyone outside of this area in this time period had something of value to contribute, that's kind of a new concept in pedagogy, in American pedagogy anyway. So like the diversity of storytelling, that's how you discover the universality of storytelling. When you read stories from different disparate parts of the world, telling basically the same story, which is with different color around it. I grew up in this kind of climate, so the details of my story are colored by that. You write about elm trees and I write about bamboo stalks because that's what I saw growing up and you saw that growing up. But we are both writing about the same basic themes.
Yeah.
And I find that
beautiful.
I think these days, in not only giving everybody a voice, because we all did have a voice, but giving everybody an equal voice has been extremely harmful. Because I know for people of our generation, I think it took us a long time to get it out of our heads that just because something is in print, it's true. Because back in the day, for something to make it to print, it had to be vetted. It had to be edited, go through a publishing house, go through quality control. Now, I can put anything.
Mhm.
Doesn't even have to be true. There are no consequences for me if it isn't true. I might make more money if I'm lying to you. Seeing those things in print, I think a lot of our minds defaulted to putting them on equal footing with books. And it took us a long time to go, wait, just because it's written down doesn't mean anyone has looked into this.
Totally. Even every once in a while, I'll see a documentary that I'm watching, and when they try to tell the narrative from one side, you can see that they start showing like social media posts of how people have been commenting on that thing, and you're like, well, that's anybody could be doing that social media post.
Yep.
So we've now created even documentaries, which used to be, a fundamental source of something that was sourced correctly to make sure
Yes.
that it is representative, is even using low-level trickery to kind of make it look more important than it really might be in the grand scheme of things.
It's
So
really easy to say that AI slopified that. That was happening for years before AI was introduced, where you would see article after article after article that was essentially someone tweeted this. This is really bad in the tech journalism and entertainment journalism.
Yeah.
Entertainment journalism for years has been filled with, this actor said they'd be interested in playing this role. And it's an entire article when you go, yeah, who wouldn't want to be fucking Batman? He's an actor who said, yeah, I'd love to be Batman one day. And not only is one article, but it's repeated. There's 20 outlets.
Right.
So we were long living in humans, we seek out shortcuts as a survival skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that our civilization and our culture has advanced since the Industrial Revolution in such a manner, in such a quick way, that I think we're still holding a lot of primal survival instincts that don't apply anymore. The choice paralysis we feel at like the glut of information, that's because we've never experienced anything like that before. And we went from 0 to 1,000 very quickly.
It's really interesting that there's just there's an Emerson quote that I was thinking of when you were talking about the democratization of what appears to be credible source, which the quote is, never read any book that is not a year old, never read any but famed books, and never read any but what you like. Which is really interesting because, I mean, you said, Richard, that you read like 50 books a year. So if you're really, really lucky, you live to be 100, you'll read 5,000 books out of all of the millions and millions
It
of
makes
books.
you're really bumming me out.
I know, I'm sorry. But,
Right.
but it's really useful to say, okay, well, if I'm going to read 5,000 books, like there's the part of that quote that stands out to me is the part about a year old, right? Because it's like, we have certain texts that have come out that have really stood the test of time. Like, I'm not religious. I would consider myself to be probably agnostic. But there is it's undeniably true that wherever those stories that were written in the Bible, wherever those came from, there seems to be some pretty deep truths that are represented in those texts, to the point where thousands of years later, scholars and philosophers are still talking about them.
Actually,
right?
can I jump on that real quick?
100%.
You know, I've been in the Old Testament of the Bible. There are a lot of accounts of old cities under siege, and we're talking like 2000 BCE. That, you know, like Jericho, Babylon, and the way that these accounts are written from somebody in that time period. You know, they've been under siege for months. They write it as the end of the world because to them it is the end of the world.
The world's ended so
the
many
storming.
times.
Yes, exactly. So these stories in the Bible of apocalypse and whatnot and floods and all that. It's
an archetype.
It's written from somebody whose world was ending. That's the storytelling. I like to go, when I'm reading old stuff, I really like to go away from the great men of history. I read this thing a year or so ago. I can't remember where it was from, but it was epitaphs and poems found at a pet cemetery in ancient Rome. And it was all like ancient Romans burying their dog and writing like, Quintus, the happiest day of my life is when I brought you home as a puppy, and the saddest day of my life is when I buried you here. And you're reading stuff that is 5,000 years old, 4,000 years old, and it's just the guy who's crying over his dead dog.
Right.
And you think, that I've done that. I've written sweet, silly things about, I've cried over pets. For how much has changed and for how many things have happened, that makes me feel so connected and so much a part of a greater thing. And that is the shared experience of storytelling. Somebody wrote a quick story about their dog. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's a nobody with a nobody pet from a nobody place that is sand now.
Mhm.
But that was his world. And 4,000 or 5,000 years later, I'm reading it and welling up about this guy, talking about his dog and crying, in some graveyard in a pet cemetery. That is, I don't know. I think to me, when I talk about AI and my back gets up, it's because the way it's talked about as a threat to that, removing that from the human equation, I think would force us to stop calling ourselves human.
Well, I have a couple questions that coming up. So, one, it sounds like even the example that you just gave, do you think that there's a connection between great literature and writing that literature from a place of profound character? Because the person who is able to express that about their dog is somebody who I trust. I don't need to know much more about that person. If you feel that way about your
Yeah.
dog, I'm pretty sure
For sure. Yeah.
you're somebody that I would that I'd sit down next to and be confident
Yeah.
that we're going to have a reasonable conversation, that we're going to come to a shared outcome on that. But if you were somebody who was, I don't know, if a story gave me even an ounce of performative language that made me think that you were trying to make me think that you like your dog and that you were good to your dog and that the relationship between your dog was so wholesome, that would be somebody that my hairs on my arm, my
Yes.
antenna would go up and I'd be like, yeah, I got to do a little bit more digging with you because I'm not sure that I'm to a place where I'm 100% where I feel the values like oozing from you, right?
That's how you can tell. That's how I tell chat generated script is if I read it and at the end I feel hollow.
Yeah.
I feel like almost something's been taken from me.
Yeah.
That I've been involved in a circular conversation with a narcissist.
Yes.
And you're just like, God, you just said 100 words, nothing came out of it.
Yeah.
Because
They
that's a
like creativity.
tourist. Well, it's aggregating other people's experiences and putting it into a pastiche. And if a human did that, you go, well, you're a poser.
Mhm.
And it brings a sort of instinctual revulsion in us when we meet imposters.
Mhm.
I think because it's a danger. If there's an imposter in your home,
Yeah.
danger, danger, danger. So when you meet somebody who's like a chameleon or something like that, and you're like really uncomfortable around that, I think that's that old primal instinct of, what are they up to?
So that's one side of it, and we should explore that side as much as we can. But I think in a balanced way, we should also try to think about like how many times have we all sat down with somebody and we're like, oh, that's a real one. You know what I mean? Like that person's
When I'm at
genuine.
Devo.
Well,
Hell yeah.
but I would for sure say the dude selling fish in the back of the truck, that's a real one.
That's
A guy who just
doesn't get real.
picks up your guitar, tunes it for you,
Gives
and then
you
gives you food, and then with no expectation is like, hey, come back and be a part of this. Like that is about as genuine of an invitation as I've ever heard.
It's
in my
also
life.
it's
I've
an
never had an
extremely old
invitation like that.
language too. Giving food to somebody. That's
And we all
Totally.
every day, listen, if you live in this area, there's a certain level of participation that you have to have in the way that the economy works, the way that people move, the way that things go on for you to be able to find your footing in this area. But there are other parts of the world where they don't pressure themselves to work the way that it works here, certainly in the Northeast, where they're like, life is beautiful every day when I wake up. And all I'm trying to do is capture as much of that beauty as I possibly can in the way that I operate. And the way that they spend their time is arguably significantly more valuable than the way that people spend time when they're so primarily focused on trying to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you a real quick question? Do you remember? It was a fish taco, right? Is that what did you eat?
Sushi.
It was sushi.
But in a seaweed roll.
Do you remember how it tasted?
Oh, yes, dude.
Right?
I mean, yeah, it was.
Can you describe it for us?
Okay. You might want to sit down for this.
Oh, okay, I'm ready.
I looked at it as strangely as if, how is this actually mine? Kind of that instinct, like, what do you want now?
Okay.
And I was like, I can't take a bite of this, like, until I'm fully, like, ready. And so Uncle Ames is playing the guitar. I'm just staring at this thing, smelling this thing, you know. One bite. Oh, man. Not only fresh fish that accompanied, like, every molecule in my body, but that seaweed rolled in it. 10 out of 10.
Man, that's just watching you time travel a little bit in that moment, going back into it. That's the taste, the experience. That's storytelling, man. I mean, you and I just met. I've never met this man. I have not been to that place, but as you were telling it, I felt it. That was the connection.
Have either of you have you seen The Odyssey?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, have you seen The Odyssey?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I've been told to.
I took my kids to go see it on Saturday, and then I had a night to myself on Tuesday, and I went to go see it again because I thought it was a pretty profound piece of art. But you know, one of the things that is a through line in The Odyssey that I was curious about your thoughts, because you gave us a really good, you gave us the context to understand how you had that 10 out of 10 bite. You gave us the backstory. We understood why you were in this part of Hawaii, that it was a remote part of Hawaii, that you were an uncomfortable distance away from where you were about to go work on this farm. You gave us a lot of context to understand why this moment ended up being profound. And then all of a sudden, somebody gave you something with real generosity, and the taste that you got out of that was a 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
The chances of somebody getting a 10 out of 10 taste without going through all the things that you went through before that, I would say is extremely unlikely. It's very, very unlikely that you're going to go to the sushi place next to Starbucks and that you're going to get a 10 out of 10 bite at that place in comparison to getting it off the back of a truck. But what people don't want to acknowledge is that you have to do what you did to adventure to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Was the work that's necessary to be able to get a 10 out of 10.
It also made the story in the retelling so much better. The details you gave, even in the things you didn't tell me, I could see that I'm sensing like you're sweaty, it's hot. You know, every time a breeze comes by, you're like, oh, it's the best. Your body is feeling a certain way, being separated from comfort for not just a few minutes, but a few days. And you're entering a new sort of clarity and receptiveness. You set all of that in the story. And when you got to the climax of the story, which is having the sushi with this dude, if you had just told me that, I would have been like, sure, that's great. That's not a story though. And absolutely, that was the journey there. That's what we miss when we optimize storytelling is, okay, just going to the end of the book, you miss a lot of it. Just reading the summary of something or the analysis of it, you have to read all of the chapters in between too.
Yeah.
The ending means a lot more when you journey with the person through the middle parts in the beginning.
Some believe that you don't even start a book till you're done with it. And I just want
I
to
like
say
that.
That is what I'm talking about, is that you're going to come, you surprisingly have these moments of extraordinary wisdom that I don't want to let us pass us. Yes.
Actually, I did want to say
that one more time, please.
that you don't actually start a book until you finish it.
That's a really amazing piece of, whoever shared that with you must have been a very interesting and wise person, and I appreciate you sharing something.
That gas station guy smoking Newport.
hell yeah, that's all he said.
I understand.
That's what he's talking about.
I understand. The I don't want to ruin. Oh, you got a high five. You don't want to.
I'm sorry, dude. My bad. That was rude of me.
I don't want to ruin the Odyssey for you, so
I could never.
No spoilers for a 4,000-year-old epic.
Good point.
No, but
Good point.
the book, the movie deviates a lot from the story in ways that I really loved and found fascinating?
Well, what I thought was at the base of the movie, especially the second time. So the first time that I watched it, I really enjoyed the experience. And when I walked out with my kids, they asked me what I thought, and I was like, I think that this might be the best piece of art I've ever experienced. And they were both like, they were like, Dad, there you go, being like over the top about it again. And then I wanted to go see it by myself because I want to be like, well, what's it going to feel like when I'm not sitting next to my kids and thinking about like, because there were some scenes in that movie that I wasn't worried about them, but there was some extreme scenes.
That
Not only
movie is intense.
not only the graphic violence, but when you see it, there are some noises that they're making like while things are in distress, and like just the emotional experience that you have, the feelings that course through your body while you're watching it. I just had moments where I was looking at my 14-year-old son being like, all right, we're going to have to talk about this on the way home because this is kind of an intense experience to be watching something and feeling it so intensely at the same time. But my point is this, and this is where I'm hoping that we can talk through it together, is that I believe what that movie is really all about at its core is that it's about the awakening of understanding consequences, that it is how your actions naturally have to have consequences that follow them, and there is no way to escape that. And I'm wondering, how do you guys think about consequences in your lives? Like when we talk about character, we talk about stories. Stories are never good without consequences, right? Like that's essentially what a story always is chasing either good or bad consequences in one way or the other. So how do you make peace with the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis, knowing that it's always going to lead to a consequence?
Wow. I can't help but think of perspective of consequence, like if it's positive or negative. Personally to you or me, can I show you a book I have in my bag?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a great book.
Okay.
Go back to surfing. This is like the surfer's Bible.
Okay.
It's The Barbarian Days.
I am familiar with this book.
Dude,
Yeah.
this is a meaty, no page wasted.
Yeah, another
Masterpiece.
person who lives their life by a surfer's code, who I
Code.
I had an intimate relationship with at one point. Not with the person as much as I was in a relationship with somebody who knew this person well, suggested that book to me, and it made a lot of sense that surfing is one of the things that goes beyond. It is about a relationship with nature, and then it's about the bond that you can have with other people once you have already reached that commitment and relationship with nature. But to me, what I learned about it, because I've never surfed, is that it seems like you have to have passed a test with nature before the other surfers will allow you to be a part of that exclusive club. Like that you don't just get in. And I think that also connects to what you're talking about why social media may have become so vacuous, is because there was no barrier of entry to be accepted into that club. The second you give them your email address and you jump into it, you can start giving your opinion about anything that you want. But when you're surfing and you're waiting for a wave, my understanding is that there is a very deep degree of respect as to whether you give that wave to somebody else or you come into that wave. There is a whole code that if you don't understand it, you could get yourself in a cultural mess on your surfboard if you haven't gone through the learning stages necessary to be able to be accepted.
Dude, there are legendary stories in here that you don't have to surf to understand. Come to find out, books or biographies, you don't really have to walk the same shoes. It's amazing when you have, or have a little bit of resonance, because then you're like, oh, this is now my guide. But say you want to live nothing like this, there's still a lot of human, trial and errors and romance and all that in here. There are even legendary surfers in here that William Finnegan and Brian D. Salvatore, who's in this photo here, they're best friends on a surf journey, and they get into so many side quests and gas station Newport gentlemen that you have to talk to, and homeless looking for their home nights. But I will say, I got full body chills when he's talking about a surf spot that they want to protect so badly that they know photographers go to, that they purposely don't take the best wave of the day, so the photographer doesn't get it and then publish it, and then it's everywhere, like Surfer's Journal. That's like a different kind of
Code.
Yeah.
code.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The cardinal.
Yeah.
And is there a more respectable
Respect that.
code than
Yeah,
that?
for sure.
That they like, that they believe. So what I also have learned about surfing, and I would say, like, to me, my equivalent of surfing is what I would consider facilitation. It's like leading a conversation, leading a room, and that's what I've done professionally most of my life. And I find that to be an art form. I think it's like a balance that you have to find with the way that you're curious with what everybody is saying to try to get to the bottom of whatever that opportunity is in any given moment. But I learned a lot in looking at parallel things, that it's all the same. You know what I mean? Whatever you choose as your craft, whatever you decide, if it's writing books, if it's writing plays, if it's horror movies, if it's whatever that is, once you dive into that craft and you try to learn everything that there is to learn about it so that you become an expert in it, you realize that once you reach some level of mastery, those skills are kind of the same across everything that people are trying to master.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just want to not gloss over this. Debo, watching you, a 21-year-old, pull a library book that you're excited about, I can tell it's a library book because I can see the barcode.
I'm never giving it back.
That's fine.
It's been like 5 years and I've read this like
It's fine by me.
5 times.
The fact that you got it out of a library at all, pulled it out of your bag, and you're telling us all about it with genuine excitement in your face, it is a moment of true happiness for me and euphoria. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that with us. And keep reading. It's amazing.
You did say something, though, that we got to go back to, because it's important, I think, to the conversation, which is that you said, who interprets the consequence? And I think that that's actually, for you, is such an interesting question, because I would guess that, like, how do you interpret consequences of your actions? Like, do you think about when you wake up, everything that you're doing is going to have a consequence for you and the people around you? Like, how do you think about that?
24/7. I mean, I don't know. I'm in a spot where I've fucked up so many times.
What does that mean? Like, what does it look like if you fucked up?
It looks like swimming against the current.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm gonna come back to the water.
And who has to pay the consequences for that beyond you?
Everyone in my tree. You know, and it branches out to myself. Obviously, I'm the root of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
This is my experience. Like, right now, I'm looking at you guys and listening, and it wouldn't be possible if I weren't alive. You guys would be having a conversation, maybe with another person, but that wouldn't even be an idea. I would be like mycelium or something. I don't know. I would have to be in this world, but considering that this is my experience, that's so much responsibility. Considering that this is your experience as well, you're seeing me and listening to me. That's a lot of responsibility. And to wake up, to just even turn on one of your senses, you then begin to consider the consequences. I have friends that consider no consequences, and they look so blissful. They look so free. They look like
I know.
the fool, the idiot.
Damn this conscience. It seems so fun to not have one.
Right? And they'll have to pay in other ways. But for me personally, I'm very aware and reflective.
Yeah.
And sometimes that gets to a point of unnecessity. Like, breathe, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down if it's necessary. If you want to remember it, talk to literally anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, the closest person next to you, or someone you trust. But you know.
Do you think that you were born with this level of awareness, or do you think that this was something that you developed because you lived in a household that promoted awareness? Because the thing that is really unique about you is that obviously 21 is relatively young, and the way that you describe some things are really playful, but your language doesn't deceive the fact that you are extremely aware of the playfulness that you're using, and that there's something deeper that's going on underneath that, which I would guess is an awareness of your own sense of self, which is uncommon at any age, but very uncommon at 21. So do you think that that was just something that was like heightened in you naturally, or do you think it's something that you've developed over a certain period of time? did it come out more with psychedelics, less with, you did something over here, didn't do something over there? Like these are all things that change that, you know what I mean?
Did I already confess the psychedelic
Well, you said that you
stomach
took
I
an
have?
edible in 8th grade, so that's a pretty extreme
is,
experience at that age. Not an extreme experience as you get older, but when your mind is that young, that does have an effect.
For my part, game recognized game.
That's funny.
So what is it for you? Do you think, like, was it a nurture or nature thing for this level of awareness that you're seeing yourself as, like, you're observing yourself, not necessarily just thinking that you are your thoughts and feelings?
Man, I've been nurtured, and nature has nurtured me. Um, I've gone through the holy man syndrome. I've gone through the I am the smallest thing ever. Anything can crush me, like kind of thought process. And both are true. We are pretty fragile, but we're also everything that exists. So when water drops in the sink, like, you can either notice what a miracle that is and go really deep into that, or you wouldn't even notice. I guess through the edibles, really just the psilocybin, and I got into that later. Like, the edibles stunned me, and then later in high school I digested psilocybin. That's powerful stuff, where you are gonna be scared shitless and pee your pants. Maybe scared shit full, like your pants would be full of shit.
It's all about set and setting, my friend.
That's right. But you can also come to an epiphany through that.
Ideally. Yeah.
A few of those, and then sprinkle like a little bit of Alan Watts and philosophy and Buddhism, and again, trial and error, stories, books, just connection through those who have gone through it was my nurturing. And nature, just being alone, like seeing everything that's going through it, looking at the systems of ants, being humbled by water. Like today, I laid flat on my back on the sand, underwater. Right when I tried to get up, another wave, like 5 feet thick, just said, "No, you're gonna actually stay here, and this is good for you." It's bad. It's so scary sounding.
It's humbling.
Humbling. That's where wisdom can come from, and like the samurai who's loud and fearful, compared to the one who's silent and like looking around, you can totally tell who's being a character and who is one through first going directly through the most embarrassing and death-defying parts.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm easily scared, and I'm also easily enlightened and turned on by everything that it gives me contentment.
Man.
Living.
So I'll never be able to time travel, but you're close enough. Can I live out a little fantasy here?
Let's go.
Just want to tell you, younger version of someone who's kind of similar to my younger version in ways that have revealed themselves throughout this conversation. You're on a good journey, but you are under no obligation to provide those answers or even figure them out. The curiosity, don't just, if you can eliminate what I'm sensing is a little pressure you put on yourself, your openness to the world around you is already something a lot of people you'll encounter throughout your life have never had and may not ever have. You have found an openness and a curiosity at such a young age that puts you really, really far ahead of the game for, I think, a healthy existence. You don't have to figure it all out, man. Life is questions. You seem to have the wherewithal and the wisdom and the bravery to ask those questions. Don't worry about answers so much. Everybody's got a different one, and who's to say? Maybe you get all the answers at the end, but I remember being 21, having my mind blown over and over again, discovering the enormity of what was out there and feeling like there was some pressure on me. Nah, you're never going to get to all of it, ever. And that's the beauty. Why would you want to? Then you're out. Then you have no more.
Well, it's certainly true that no matter how much you learn, you'll never learn enough to know everything.
No.
You can't. It
Like what happens on that day? You're like, well,
well,
did it.
it's just, I mean, if there was ever something that was infinite, it would be knowledge, right? So if we, like, even if we just took this down to its simplest kind of conversation, it is the one most likely unattainable thing we could ever do, which is to try to learn everything. And therefore, it makes a lot more sense that we try to develop the skill that allows us to be able to learn whatever we can, which is curiosity. Curiosity is the thing that does open you up to every moment being the moment where maybe you get a 10 out of 10 experience, you get some sort of nugget of enlightenment that you wouldn't have had before.
And in that way, you can have a meaningful and even joyful experience out of something that goes terribly wrong.
I don't know if we've got different life experiences here, but my experience has certainly been that the best learning that I've ever done has been through things that did not go well.
Absolutely.
And everything that I don't like about myself is usually something that I would attach to some sort of entitlement that I've had, that something came naturally easy to me, or somebody gave me something easier than I should have had it. And that entitlement caused me to build a part of my personality that I've had to try to deconstruct because I don't like it so much. It's a complicated process when you're going through that. But I think in the end, a lot of what we're talking about is choices equaling consequences. And one thing that has come up on this podcast and that I try to think about a lot is that whatever my gifts are very obviously to me the exact equal and opposite to whatever my deficits are. And so it's not about trying to make everything okay all the time, because the truth is that it's not. I think it might be about trying to figure out the balance between like loving yourself for both sides.
Oh, I would say trying to make everything okay all the time is a guarantee you're making it worse.
Right, but isn't that what is happening right now? Is that everybody's trying to pretend like everything has to be okay for everybody, and it's not.
Yes, we have. If you ask a machine, what's the best thing for a person? The machine might tell you to be happy all the time, right? That's the best thing. In reality, you should not be happy all the time. It's impossible. You cannot have happiness without understanding the dichotomous opposite of sorrow. True understanding of joy follows a bone deep realization of what sorrow is. There's that trope of the meal I had the day after, I almost died was the best meal ever. It's that kind of thing. When I experienced my first great loss in life, which I would say was the loss of my dad, it was a moment where I went, oh, I may have intellectually understood what this was, but I had no idea what this was. Yes. And it wasn't in the grandiosity of it. It was in the banality of death. It wasn't that I didn't understand how it felt when someone dies. I didn't understand what it was to 3 weeks later be arguing with an insurance agent from a fucking call center to pay out your dad's insurance that he was up to date on, and having to fax a death certificate to some disinterested person at the other end of the line and being like, no, he's really dead. I promise my dad is super fucking dead. Deader than dead, can't get any more dead. Please, can I have the money he gave you?
Right.
It's in those tiny moments that you experience the significance. And I think in our drive.
Were you experiencing a lack of empathy from the people on the other end?
No, it wasn't that.
What was it that was causing those moments to feel so heightened in your
in
memory?
your mind, in my mind, in my world is over. When someone foundational to you dies, you die too. You become a new version of yourself out of necessity. That could be a bitter, frightened version. It can be a crazy version where nothing matters, or you can sort of work it out. But you're not the same anymore.
I agree. I've lost my mom, so I have a.
You know exactly what I mean.
I do know
yeah.
what you mean. Yeah.
And it's not just death. It could be a major life upheaval,
Mm-hmm.
financial or whatever, but you have to construct like Richard 2.0. I'm not quite who I was before. That kind of like experiential living, the wisdom versus the knowledge, you can't optimize because there is no shortcut to that. You can't gain wisdom of a tragedy without having a tragedy and then sitting in that motherfucker, like not running away from it, not distracting. A machine that wants us to be happy all the time does not understand that pain shapes us. If you take away pain and discomfort and boredom and sorrow and all of the uncomfortable stuff we try to minimize and get rid of, what's left,
Well, anything that tells you that you can get something that you want in an easy way is manipulating you.
Exactly.
There is no version of getting anything that you want that will be easy. Easy is the antithesis of value.
You know why that cup of coffee you got in San Juan was the best you've ever had? Because it took 5 minutes to make. And a person who's been working there for 35 years, whose father did it, made it. Like, it wasn't made off of a card written by someone in corporate who's never made a coffee to optimize how many coffees you can make in an hour for the most people.
Yeah.
This was your coffee. This coffee was made for you. And you can't have both. It's
I don't, so this came up last night in our conversation, and it's really interesting, which is, you and I are of an age where we grew up in an analog world. So like when we came home from school, we were playing in the woods. We were, we didn't have cell phones. We had connections. Television was extremely popular. My mom had this rule that we weren't allowed to watch television until 8 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
So we had 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. was the time that we could watch a TV. And, and then there was always a fight over who got the TV and what you wanted to watch and all this stuff. But in other houses that I went to, the television was on the second we got home from school. It was on all the time. And I was so jealous of those houses. Like, I thought that I wanted to live in those houses so badly so that I could watch Punky Brewster every afternoon or whatever the fuck was on. Hey Dude or, whatever. I was so jealous. And now later on, I look at it and I'm like, God, my mom was kind of a gangster, that she like kept it clean for us, that she understood that this thing could poison us if we were into it too much. And she figured out a way to set some boundaries and rules that kind of kept those parameters. Mm-hmm. But we are living in a digital world now. You were raised in a digital world. Man. You have had digital experiences all the time, but you chose to go have analog adventures.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
8 to 10 p.m. should be a fireplace with who you were about to watch TV with.
Mm. Well, the difference between the two things is the contract between you and the form of entertainment. It used to be the entertainment would solicit your attention and you would grant it. I pick up this book. I'm done. I'm putting it down now. I'm going to a movie. I'm giving you 2 hours of my time. Show me what you got. Then I'm going home. Mm-hmm. You chose to give your attention and your time, and you got what you took from it. Now, your attention is the commodity, and we have things that we don't give our attention to. They take it from us. The short form video, the scrolling, the dopamine hits. So we're not granting our attention to something. We're having it taken, and then the next thing takes it, and then something else goes in and takes it. So it's like, and
right.
The autonomy and the confidence and the pride and the humanity of saying, I choose to give you my time now for this purpose, as opposed to, I need to go see my therapist because I don't know how to concentrate anymore. Mm-hmm. That's
the consequence.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It really does have real world. Saying those things makes you sound like the most unfun person at the party. But like, I was the guy in 2003 writing out like full emails, grammatically perfect, and text messages being like, nah, I think if you cut corners here, if you degrade language, every tragic story begins with the degradation of language. It always ends in a pogrom.
Well, the degradation of language, but also maybe the lowering of standards.
Yes,
You know,
and
so
and the
because-
idea of just have fun, man. Come on, don't be such a pain in the ass about it.
But also sometimes like just fucking have fun, man. You know what I mean? Like let loose a little bit and go and talk to the dude who's smoking Newports outside the gas station.
Oh
you're
yeah,
coming out of.
just so I don't
it's-
worry about you though. Like, make sure you like look around before you do that. You know, I don't.
Well, here's the thing. Here's another thing that has come out of these, long form conversations. And I should say, one of the reasons why we chose 3 hours is because we realized that 3 hours is where no one can escape becoming themselves over that amount of time. You know what I mean? Once you start getting into it, we start to see each other more clearly.
Chemically so different than when we started.
Exactly. Very, very different. And I think the reason why that is because the gift, I would say the gift of this room and the gift of this table potentially is that you're sitting around it with people who are offering their full attention to you for a set amount of time.
I feel like I haven't asked any questions.
You can ask questions anytime you want.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we do another breath? And anyone who's listening, you feel free to join us.
Sure, you want me to count you in?
Please.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what, while we're here, let's give you question number 2 and see if that sparks kind of.
We are at about 2 hours. I realized I forgot to give us the
Cool.
1 hour signal.
Okay, thank you.
Little microphone stamp. Is it true you can find these around town?
Where there are some around town, yeah.
Massachusetts. Milky Way.
So one of the while
I'm
he's-
sorry. Do you not have your own bespoke wax seal for your correspondence? How embarrassing.
I do now. I'm so taking this home.
We all have. I know it's dope. It makes you feel like you're opening forbidden texts.
On the back or this side I'm
No,
seeing?
the side that's facing you is perfect.
Whoa. You ready?
Ready?
Question asks, where is more character needed today to improve our future story? Where is more character needed?
So as an older guy, I've been thinking about this. I don't have kids, but I have been thinking lately. I do have kids in my life, but boy, it's hard to tell kiddos these days why they should do the right thing. I think where we need to see more character is at the top. I've never seen leadership behave the way that it's been behaving. I remember in the 90s when Newt Gingrich was starting his attacking people, the conversation in politics became very nasty and personal, and there was talk radio all the time, and people were talking about they're an evil person. Like, what? I think it's just a nerd with a law degree. Now, the permissiveness that we're seeing with the way these people talk, the way that our leaders are talking to us now, it is impossible to hide their absolute hatred of us. Their loathing, the smug, cruel, nasty way they answer questions, when the way that masculinity is displayed. If you ever do an episode on masculinity, bring me back for that
Totally.
one.
We'll do an episode.
Holy God,
I find that to be a super interesting
I'd love to
topic.
talk about that because I love men and masculinity, but Jesus, man, we have to talk.
Well, can we just start by saying that today is an episode about honesty?
Yes.
But if we're talking about masculinity, we're not actually, I don't think that it's about putting masculinity on trial. It's about putting the fact that men that lie are a
Yes.
problem.
That
That men that lie are creating a problem for all men in all of masculinity.
that's
because-
where my anger
because
is. What
it's
do
a
you
ripple effect that you can't stop, and the men that are doing it are ruining it for the rest of us in a number of different ways that we need to acknowledge,
also,
right?
what are you grifters doing to the next generation of boys? I can see what you're doing. It's It's poison. You need to be stopped. But it's just such a like ludicrous cartoonish distortion of it. So I didn't mean to get so off topic.
No,
it's
not
just
off topic at
when
all.
you have people at the very top,
Yeah.
it's kind of getting back to the printed word being degraded in the age of anybody can post anything. So the idea in our minds is that to attain a level of office where you're a head of state, you must have earned that through a mixture of personal accomplishments and character qualities. We've always looked for certain things in all men that we've had lead us at the presidential level. And it only seems like very recently, we've not only abandoned those qualities, we have gone to the polar opposite, that the buck never stops here, never admitting fault, never making things right. The venality of it, the avarice and the absolute, not just shamelessness, but the pride in saying things like empathy is a weakness, in telling young boys to mistreat women. Anyway, when it comes from the top and you don't have the experience of a life before, that is what your institution is. I am old enough to say, whoa, no, this is an aberration, isn't it? I'm starting to worry that maybe it isn't. But I at least have the context for somebody born that has only known this era. Their baseline is grifting and cruelty and one-upsmanship. When the goal of discourse is to own somebody, and that's another thing. We actually use the word own people with no hint of irony. My goal is to own people. We fought a whole war about not doing that to each other. And I know that's not literally what people mean, but that is the language we've chosen to use. The goal of rhetoric is to best someone. It's not to convince. It's not to even have just an engaging night of a conversation where you talk about stuff and you just talk about it. And you, at the end of it, you go, what a refreshing night to be with people who are open-minded and well-read and could communicate.
Yeah.
If you go into conversations with the goal of domination, that's not really a conversation. That's like a maneuver.
I'm seeing the other side of this too, though, where it's like, maybe because I'm raising young men, I've gotten to know Oliver really well, like having you on the podcast tonight, I am extremely optimistic about the generation that is going to mature into leading the world at some point, because I think that they get it. You know what I mean? Like we've grown up in these multiple eras where we're like, we grew up with this idea that there were quality people who would lead you that you could trust. For some reason, we were given that idea, but the people who have grown up in this era of what they've seen, they understand that smoke and mirrors and it's bullshit. And I think,
having to unlearn that stuff sucked.
Well, I think we're about to find out, guys, and this is again, does not make it the truth. I'm just trying to share with you as honestly as I can that I think that we're about to find out collectively as a whole that it's all been a mirage and that they've been lying to us the entire time, and that everything has to some degree been a lie. And we're gonna have an existential societal experience with that. But what I'm suggesting for everybody, at least from my point of view, is that we can get through that as long as we realize that the thing that we always needed to do was solve it here. We needed to figure out how to be in love with ourselves. And then it's not that hard to figure out how you can offer love to anybody else once you figure that out. But if we continue to be sort of empty here, and then we pretend like someone out there is going to solve our problems and that we're looking for someone to lead us out there, I think we just fall into their trap and we keep going into the same painful cycle over and over and over again.
That's the hope I have too, is human beings have been around for quite some time. This new way of thinking, and it is quite new, has only been around for a millisecond. And I do not believe that human behavior and character has altered to the degree that 7 weird tech oligarchs say it has. I don't think we're all going to be post-humanoids on Mars in 10 years, because the person who said that would happen was high on ketamine when he said it.
Huh.
It's also demonstrably a silly thing to believe. It's just that I agree with you completely. However, it's been my experience that most people will not put that work in, which is why it's important to have a figurehead at the top, giving a good, quick, easy example of basic humanity and decency so that people who don't do a lot of work on themselves, who don't pay attention very much, who through circumstances or decision, survival, whatever it is that prevents them from looking inward too deeply, that they can just look to a quick example of somebody and go, oh, the president seems like a real decent guy, and it's, why Christians follow Jesus as an example. It's why you choose somebody better than yourself it's why people it's my favorite comic book superhero. I'm a big comic guy, and it's cheesy as hell, is Superman, because Superman is the ideal. You don't need to be Superman. You can't be. You won't be, and you never will be. But by doing what you can to rise to the example he sets, to that level, you inherently become a better person.
Yeah.
You won't become Jesus, you won't become Shakespeare, and you won't become Superman. But if you use that as your archetype and you strive for that, you're going to become a greater version of yourself than you would if you used a venal, lying rapist as your archetype just because he's rich.
Well, so let me validate a couple things. A couple things that I've learned from corporate training, which is where I've spent a lot of my time, is that we have both anecdotally and through outcomes found that you cannot train culture from the bottom up. It only works from the top down. So if you have somebody in a leadership position that is somehow infiltrating culture for the worst, they are using, and I would say this is primarily done through, there's only really two ways that you can lead. You can either lead through fear, which is the use of short-term behaviors to modify the results that you get from people. It works extremely well to be able to get short-term results. Unbelievably ineffective when you spread that out over a longer period of time.
Historically speaking, those civilizations under strict authoritarianism or fascism, they don't last very
They have shorter
long.
cycles.
They do, because the maintenance required in ruling through fear and authority is ever present. You have to have a Stasi that investigates every person.
Right.
It's not the natural state of being.
Well, authority requires that there are a fewer people who are in authority than the number of people in which they're controlling. So if at any point the awareness got high enough in the people who were being controlled, they would obviously take over and they would do, so it's a failure of a model and a system on a pretty simple level, to be honest. Respect is the other opportunity, but that takes a lot longer, a lot harder. It takes a lot more work to be able to figure out where that is. So just wanted to validate that. But on the other end, I'm also curious to hear, from a younger perspective, what's your take on where the world is right now? And if you had to think about what the world needs more of to head in a direction that you'd feel good about, how would you describe that?
Yeah. Just less censorship and brainwashing and more connection and campfires instead of the news. We really aren't in the hands of the rich, and as long as there's community and truth being spoken between your really up to your neighborhood. I've been guilty of not giving eggs to my neighbors, so to say, or wanting to even see them in broad daylight, but really we're so much stronger together, and it would be really lovely to also treat those who can't raise their voice with actually prioritize those who can't defend themselves. So sorry. Oh, take it. I'm saying trees or the water or our land. And I'm not saying land in New Zealand. Don't go donating to that. Around you, the people in New Zealand will protect that place.
Live local.
Live
Yeah,
local,
for sure.
and worry
Yeah.
local, because
Community.
you get community.
Yeah.
You get caught up in everyone's story, especially an empathical person or someone who wants to save the world all at once. Like
For sure. It can be overwhelming and leave you like
oh yeah,
paralyzed, right?
paralyzed. Then
Yeah.
you don't get nothing done.
Exactly.
And like this AI boulder is rolling down, and
I didn't
and-
figure that crap out till I was
you
like
know.
twice your age, bro.
oh yeah,
You're doing all right.
man. It is all right to have this perspective, but even myself, I don't follow through always. So
That's okay. That's being a person.
it is okay,
Yeah.
but it's not taught.
Now, can I just really
It's not
quickly,
okay.
when you said I have been found guilty of not giving eggs to my neighbors, I immediately pictured you in some sort of like Pilgrim Salem witch trial. I was like, Debo has been found withholding eggs from good wife neighbor.
Oh yeah,
That's
his hanging is tomorrow.
I guess I know what kind of
We should be
monstrous
like that.
person you are.
We should be like that. There should be some kind of threat, not obviously being hung in the morning, but
I think we can find a middle ground there. Yeah.
Not like a public shaming, but like, dude,
Yes.
really?
Okay.
You're holding all the eggs to yourself
100%.
right now, dude?
It sounds so weird as someone who got bullied to shit as a kiddo. Yeah, shame needs to come back a little bit. It's healthy to be ashamed of doing terrible, awful things to people and maybe not doing them.
For sure. I've learned a ton from
Goodness.
things I've felt ashamed about. It's huge. What do you guys think about the idea of, like, for a long, it seems like to where we've gotten here, it might have a lot to do with the fact that we think about death more than we think about birth. You know what I mean? That our focus is more about what's slipping away from us and what we need to do to hold on to it all the time, rather than thinking like, man, whatever time I have left, why don't I donate that to the best degree that I can to people who are going to build the thing that's probably going to allow me to be able to go. Like, are we just looking in the wrong direction? Are we looking up and we should be looking down? Are we looking left and we should be looking right?
We have less confidence as far as being young, like looking around me. Resources and another hand to pick you up is like so scarce, it feels like. But really, all of us would jump on the first opportunity to, I don't know, dude, do something together.
Can I ask you, I don't mean, sorry to interrupt.
Go.
I'm just really excited about what you're saying. Because you and I, in our awkward years, right, we're not being filmed all the time. We could practice terrible skateboard moves. We could do dance moves. We could hit on girls or whatever, and make an ass of ourselves and be awkward teenagers. And no one would remember that shit except for us at like 3 a.m, 25 years later, randomly. You're just like, what?
That's all who should.
You know what I mean? And what I've worried about for a long, long time is not only the creation of like a snitch culture, which is really bad, but has that in your life, the threat of constant, like, I might, this might be something people laugh at later. Has that stopped you from taking risks? Has that made you pause and made you shy away from doing something?
That's like a deeply unsettling feeling, and it's so real.
Oh, I feel it. I hate it. But I'm an adult now, you know? What's it like for, do you feel like, have there been times where you're like, nah, I'm not going to do that because I don't know. Maybe someone sees me.
Oh yeah, man. It changes it completely. It's even how we're talking to each other right now. And for those listening, we're slowly, raking the leaves of who we are, Brent, Richard, and myself. But still, it is not synthetic, but it's a little coated in a kind of, protection of myself. And even though we will rot and join the rest of it all on the other side, it's something we want to protect, our identity, our name, it's natural, right?
Yeah.
It's a worry that I guess I'm learning to get over. And because we can't change it, there's only going to be more supervision.
I think that's become a huge drag on the upcoming generation, is an aversion to risk out of fear of ridicule. And that if you're not taking risks, you're not trying new things, you might miss out on something that blows your mind and like changes your perspective on something. Whereas risk taking used to be much more encouraged back in the day. I feel like the elimination of the possibility of risk, or like, I'm not going to do something unless I know it's going to work out, is a really damaging thing for us. And I'm actually happy to hear that you're growing past that a little bit, because honestly, at this point, who isn't on camera doing something stupid? Just don't do something like cruel, which you shouldn't do anyway. But like, I worry about like the kids who maybe want to try to skateboard, but they're like, no, I don't want to fall, because you are going to fall. You are going to look bad when you start playing drums, right? Did you start off great or?
No.
Yeah.
Oh man, we should totally, if you are to be recorded, everyone applaud and award him or her eating shit.
Yes.
Just
Look, I always, this is a thing I do in life, is when I see somebody stumble, I'm always like, yo, man, you almost had it that time. Like, I don't want people to be afraid to try new things, especially kiddos. And I know you're 21. That's just an old guy thing, man. You're not a kid, but
there is
hell yeah.
there's a truth that it seems to be emerging from every conversation that we've had, and maybe the most common one. It's not easy to find something that everybody universally finds true, but this has come pretty close, which is that humans get good at anything that they practice.
it's amazing.
So that if that is true, like if everybody agrees that that's true, that really changes the way that we should be thinking about time. And the fact that if you have an interest in something, it's not about how good you are at it. It's about the fact that you have dedicated yourself to beginning the learning process. And in the beginning of the learning process, there is a huge phase that you have to go through where you have to have humility. And that's also why I think it's really good if you have gained some level of mastery over one thing. It's really important to go find something else that you're not good at and try to learn how to do that all over again, because it's that humility that you talked about that the wave always gives you. That the wave teaches you very quickly, no matter how much you go to the gym, no matter how strong you think you are, that wave is going to hold you down no matter what. You know what I mean?
You live
There's no
longer that way
escaping it.
if you know your place.
You look like you had a thought though.
Oh, just connecting to be forgiven after is so important.
Yeah.
And then brought back up,
Yeah.
which the wave does.
Yeah.
It's forgiving and it throws you back out.
Interesting.
One thing that
The
I've
waves, man.
What do you mean forgive? I'm so sorry.
no, go.
When the wave hits you, do you think it's punishing you? Do you think it's teaching you a lesson, like it's humbling you? And then the forgiveness is, you can get back up.
You can get back out and go on another one.
Okay.
Most surfers will tell you that they learned to calm down and a lesson was installed when they panicked, that it was easier to be choked up or stay under the water longer. And when you calm down, then you kind of acclimate to everything that's going on, going with it, then you're brought back to the surface. And I think that's beautiful.
That is
Adding
beautiful.
forgiveness
That is
to your
beautiful.
personification of the wave was a really interesting detail. I like that very much. I'm going to think about that.
Oh yeah. It applies to all. We do.
Yeah.
There is a lot of how many areas of our lives do we swim against the current versus allow ourselves to understand the current and then we flow with it. And that does seem to be something that is very poetic in the ocean. You know what I mean? That if you're doing something that requires you to be able to be in lockstep with the ocean, it requires you to humble yourself to just how much this thing can kick your ass, but it also makes you understand that you have to learn how to flow with it perfectly to be able to even enjoy it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you have to learn how to put your weight into the surfboard, into the wave.
Dude, there's nothing more ugly than the ocean, but there's also nothing more perfect because it doesn't think. It's just being, right?
Right.
And water's used through all kinds of metaphors and stories, and especially the Taoist and Buddhist, like they always come back to water. Like water just finds its shape. It falls into what it is. So, dude, if you can just be near water, drink water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are water. It's cool, but like we're saying here, I guess having something forgiving and so strong
Mm-hmm.
and like identityless, it's really been a teacher for me and my character. Cool.
You said something earlier that I just want to go back to because I think it, again, is like one of those comments that you've had that I think has a lot of depth to it. You you were talking about this idea that we've all been talking to each other and we've increased the level of depth in our conversation, but there's still probably patterns in the way that we're talking to each other that identify that there's some low level frequency of an identity that we hold on to that creates that pattern between us, right? And one of the thoughts that has given me the ability to try to lessen that as much as I can. Like I have found a lot when I've come on to this podcast that my goal is eventually we're going to try to do 3,000 episodes because I think that is what will allow us to be able to get as close to 10,000 hours worth of cataloged time with people being themselves. But my personal goal on this is to figure out whether I can have the courage to come on and continue to be myself all the time, whether I don't rely on falling back into some characteristics that, things that you've said before that all of a sudden can just flow easier, but that's not necessarily what that moment was or what it called for or what it needs to be, and just trying to allow yourself to actually be raw in a moment and be very real with anybody that's there. It's odd that that's difficult. It's odd that that's, this has come up several times, but it's very odd that being 100% yourself is the thing that people are striving for that seems to be difficult to do in this world, where really when you think about it, it should be the easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't need to add layers. Those layers shouldn't exist in the first place.
I think it's
So true.
it's another kind of primal survival skill of humans. Reading a room, so to speak, of going, uh-oh, I need to adjust my behavior very quickly or I'm going to get murdered in this tavern. That kind of thing. We might call it code switching nowadays. We all do this, absolutely change aspects of my behavior and personality when I'm in different work environments, maybe. You choose I never present a false version of myself because it's exhausting again. But I filter. It's like I close the iris on and it opens up for different levels of access. I just found that that's the best way to make do. And as a younger person, I used to struggle with that. Am I being dishonest? Am I being not true to myself? As I get older and start to realize, well, who am I trying to prove this to? I really just need to prove it to myself.
When you close the iris, who loses access to the fullness of you?
It's just, so let's say I'm at a job, and it's I have in the past become involved in jobs, and like you get into the stuff about it, and the people I have found that are usually more successful and happier are the ones who learn how to close that iris, to say, okay, I will let you have this much information about me, enough to have some water cooler chat, but nothing. I control what you know about me, and if you find other things out on your own, it's my choice to indulge or to talk about. There's a lot of power in that. It's hard to do for someone like me. I hate small talk. I like to just let's get into it. I know we just met, but let's talk about everything.
Well, it's such an interesting question because I'm not 100% sure that closing the iris does help you or them to get better outcomes. And I'm not saying that you're wrong in what you're saying, because we would have to put this across like so many different things. But I think that from a training perspective, what I've seen is that I've had the opportunity in given years where I might go through training and I meet thousands of people in a year in environments that can be relatively vulnerable. And what I found over and over again is that anybody in those environments who actually showed me who they were, I don't mean that they showed me, they allowed themselves to be seen fully. And I happened to be there and present for that experience. I liked every single one of them.
For sure.
Every single one of them. Wow. I enjoyed every single one of them without fault across that. But the people who stayed protected and they were trying to figure out how to stay safe ended up creating angles that were difficult to figure out if I could actually get to know them. And that created a hesitation on whether whether the room could be as vulnerable as it was capable of being with that person in it.
I think I'm drawing a little bit more on my childhood experience, in which there were many times in which being my truthful self would lead to physical harm to myself.
Oh,
So
that's-
like you learn.
I'm genuinely sorry that
Oh
happened.
no, I thank you. I don't mean it like that. It's more like you learn young that I can tell the truth and suffer, or I can say what I know is wanted, and I might choke on it a little bit, but I'm not going to get my ass beat.
Yeah.
As an adult, who I am not trying to say that I live in poverty or anything like that, but I don't really have parents or like familial support, and I've always worked low-paying jobs. My wife works in education. We are very, very much lower middle class, if that's a thing. I would say maybe upper, lower class, whatever. But always been a struggle, and a lot of my employment has been a matter of survival. I live primarily like with very little cushioning. And there's a lot of times where I have to pretend to be a little bit someone not me to keep providing. You know what I mean?
Totally.
There are lots of times where I'd like to. Now, I've lost jobs in the past for speaking up in the face of things that are wrong, because I can't do that. But I can like hide my personal opinion on certain cultural things, like, I don't know, golf or investments, or just people who are like really materialistic and that's all they ever talk about. I can be like, ah ha ha, yeah, definitely, love that, hole in one, whatever. Just it keeps me the job, you know.
Right.
Like I said, as a younger man, especially with my punk background, I was like, man, you're fucking lying to yourself. As an older guy, I'm like, yeah, you keep the job, and who cares what these fucking people think of you? You don't respect them either. Just go home and give your real self to the people that have earned it.
That's fair.
You know?
That's a totally fair, especially if you're working in environments where if you shared your real self, that you could be rejected.
Especially
in that vulnerability.
nowadays,
It's tough.
there are certain topics of discussion that I just always assumed were fine, like Nazis are bad. You know, I guess there's nuance to that now. So
You can't
you
say
just
that out loud anymore.
you just learn to like, yeah, I'd really love to jump up on the table and scream at every bastard in here, but I got to keep this job for another couple of weeks before I can find something better. So
I do think that there is a universal language though that we could find that could start to, that we could find some level of uniting us, even on topics that are like feel like they've gotten out of control. And I'll say, as a dad, as a father to two sons who are coming into becoming men, I feel like my primary job is to make sure that I help them find the truth. And I gotta say, like, the truth has become very elusive.
It's really hard. I
It
know.
is not an easy thing to be able to say this is and this isn't, or like listen to this person or don't listen to that person.
Getting
And
information is onerous.
what I've found is the most reliable thing that I can tell my sons is listen to your intuition. Listen to your intuition. Collect data. Talk to people. Allow experiences to happen, but trust your intuition. If something doesn't go the way you want to, reflect on the thing that didn't go the way you wanted to and come back to what you could have done and what was your intuition telling you when you made the decision to do something that didn't work out the way you wanted it to. Was it telling you to not do it?
Internal locus of control.
Listen to that. But there are things that I think that like most people that I run into would all agree on. It's like, okay, whatever we think about the world right now, I know for sure that I don't know anybody who agrees with bombs landing on children. I don't know a single person who's cool with that. And if you're cool with that, like if that's my camera, like go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Or
You know
if,
what I mean?
if your
Like-
job requires you to pretend to be cool with that,
Whatever it is, what I'm saying is that if there's a mirage out there where we don't prioritize children's safety, let's just drop the mirage and let's figure out who's on the other side of that. If you think that it's okay to make money at the cost of children safety, I think that you're not a popular person. Let's
Agreed.
take you out of the position where you're in power so that we can figure out how we can put somebody into a position of leadership that they start to believe in the basic
human
morality of
connection
what we do.
is much simpler than
Right.
the algorithms would tell us.
But what I would argue is that right now, at this moment, the thing that we have to be so careful about is that we don't try to rearrange the game by playing in the game. That what we need to do is realize that the systems that have been built have been incentivizing the wrong game.
Yeah, it's all the incentives.
And that what
Yep.
we need to do is we need to have conversations about, like, what do we love? What should we incentivize? Let's not talk about how we need to be in friction with anybody. Let's talk about, like, what is the best place to incentivize the future of you, the future of Oliver, the future of my kids, the future of kids who are being born right now. What can we do to incentivize your life being excellent? Because I'm sure that if your life gets better, my life will eventually get better. But it's certainly not going to get better if I fight with the people who are above, like, who are creating these rules that have been incentivizing greed and power in the first place.
If you play by the rules being set by people who are breaking the rules, it's a losing game, man.
It's just like, I think that there are clear places where we can all feel aligned with each other, but sometimes, and maybe we can use an analogy of water and the ocean, and you can tell me whether this works, but I have always found it with myself that when I allow my thoughts to remain at the surface, that I find myself caught in a lot of waves. Right? Especially if you've ever gone through anything that you would consider traumatic. I've gone through a couple things. I've gone through a really challenging betrayal. And I remember when I was in the aftermath of that, the level of waves that I felt like I was getting hit with, of these emotional storms that I was going through that were looping thoughts and things that I just felt like I couldn't control, that were just never ending. It was like I was at the surface of the ocean where it was really stormy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just wave after wave. And I'm like, got to go under again. Got to go under again. But
Suffocating.
when I learned how to, to slow everything down a little bit, and I became more conscientious of recognizing that I could observe my thoughts and feelings without having to identify with them, when I could see that those thoughts and feelings were happening, but they weren't the same thing as me, that I'm something different, that I have a body, I have a mind, and then there's me. And the me is the thing that I need to cherish. My mind and my body are the things that I need to practice. Mm-hmm. Once I started to kind of like delve into that, it became a lot easier to realize that no matter what's happening on the surface, all I have to do is swim far enough down where I'm no longer, where the waves aren't hitting you in the same way. And I just have to be there in stillness for as long as I can, until I can come up when the waves have passed or there's more space between them or whatever that is. I don't know if that's an apt analogy, but
and that's not to be confused with ignoring or avoiding the wave you're supposed to take.
No,
But definitely,
because you still got to come to the surface eventually, right?
man, I think you've gotten the closest to solving, I mean, collectively here, where characters more needed today for a better future story. Man, if these were, say, all three of us were like world leaders, man.
Oh,
Okay, what would you do if we made you the president of the world today?
President of the world.
What would be the first couple things that you would start to enact? I like this game. I'll play this game. What would you do?
Well, we would all hug. Yeah.
That is probably a really good idea.
Yeah, but like uncomfortably longer than you.
Yeah.
Next,
And like a this kind of hug, not like a this
no, like up
underarm.
And you,
Yeah.
not
Heart to heart.
not the bro fist.
Yeah,
hug.
yeah.
You gotta
the tough pat, like,
get
get
in
off
there.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
Can I give you one of those when this is over?
Of course.
Okay,
Of course. I think after following the hug, we would have to then reveal what we brought for each other, like a meal to share. I mean, we could have it later so it doesn't become like an ASMR eating, smacking episode. But if we were really in so much power, we would obviously be in so much fear of every move we make. So we would have to meditate. We would have to really slow down and realize how much responsibility it is, because I don't even know if the Supreme Court can fathom that, or like the wind that and storms that govern the earth can fathom that. Bear with me. These are like the most powerful things, like weather, and then like a few people around a table that also have control over all of our food and water clarity and what we see. So these are who rule us, apparently. And if we were them, we would have to slow down a lot, man, and calculate precisely the most simple, like simplify our strategy that where we can have everyone, we're not changing their character. This isn't The Giver. Like, these are the books you have to read. This is the brochure.
Yeah.
We have to maintain from waking up to going to bed, this period in between, to make it simple, that they are sustained. Not Maslow's pyramid of
The hierarchy of needs.
hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
That could really help us. That should be on our wall, huge.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're not intoxicated. Maybe we are, but we're just chill dudes. We're just chill dudes who are looking at this pyramid, and we have like these crazy ideas, like, oh, what if like we totally give these people that much, and then one of us would be like, oh man, like let's even it out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Come back to the pyramid.
Yeah.
Dude, that pyramid's awesome, and that could really help us if we were world leaders and if we hugged and meditated and shared.
I think that there was a lot of wisdom in
Positive.
what you just said. There was a lot of really great stuff in there.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, gosh,
Maybe we make you
no.
leader tomorrow. You can do 3 things.
You're doomed.
You've got a genie's bottle. You can do 3 things. What are you doing?
I'm not. Oh gosh, I don't. Please, this might.
What's the first thing on that pyramid? I gotta jump in.
Well, I do think the first. So I would be an authoritarian leader because by nature you're a singular leader of the world. That's authoritarianism. So I try to be benevolent in there, but I would be king of the world, I guess. It would be first thing on the agenda would be a redistribution of wealth. That just has to happen. There have been.
Thank you.
I always find it very silly when we say, "Oh, the world's first trillionaire." Well, okay, but we've only been measuring wealth in American dollars for a short amount of time now, and throughout history, how do you know how much money did Massa Musi have? How much money did the despotic emperors of Rome have? It's a universal human trait to hoard and to gorge. And civilizations, historically speaking, they bend under the weight of their own complexity and arrogance. Things are going really well for a really long time. And so you think they always will, right? You eliminate the friction as we have done in so many things in our lives, and you kind of forget that these things used to be hard to get. As world leader, I guess, the massive redistribution of wealth would be number one, because the thing is there actually aren't shortages of anything. People can eat. People can get what they need. We're keeping it from them. We're deciding who gets it and who doesn't. So gonna stop that. I would say nuclear non-proliferation to the point of they don't exist anymore. We simply do not have nuclear weapons anymore. I understand that you're going to fight wars and stuff, but you got to do it the old-fashioned way. Go out and scream and beat each other to death like fucking men. None of this planet-killing shit. And the third one would be... We now have a shared universal goal, and that is the survival of the species. Earth is going to survive. We might not. I absolutely think we have a tiny, tiny chance if we all band together Independence Day style when, we fought the aliens. But that would be kind of my thing, is do the thing that the right-wingers are so terrified of, is make that one world government, or at least collaboration on a global scale, where the incentive is not how do I beat China in the AI race by 1 millimeter? It's how do I work with the other most advanced nation on earth to pool our resources and save all of our stupid asses. But yeah, I'd be an authoritarian about it. I wouldn't be, I'd try not to be too brutal, but you don't change the world by asking. So that's why I don't want to be a leader, is I do not want to do the things required to institute massive change. I think massive reform and change is needed, and I am not naive to think that that's going to happen quietly or painlessly.
Yeah.
I just think the alternative is we're fucked. So at this point, I would, if I could just do one thing, it would be make us eat our vegetables. It would just, you gotta, like what you said, take a pause, slow down, and reckon. Also, is it really going to be important if DeepSeek is better than Claude, if none of us have any water to drink? So, I don't know. If there was a way to maybe stop mankind from voluntarily surrendering their own beauty and existence to 7 disgusting creeps, like the worst, most uninteresting, boring loser villains on the planet. Yeah, maybe the only thing I'd do as world leader is get a good villain. I'd be like, can we get somebody with like a volcano lair?
Lex Luthor energy in this
Yo,
house.
I'm telling you, man, this is low stakes first world problems, but I am so annoyed and pissed that our culture is being taken down by the sloppiest, most illiterate, uninteresting, boring duds.
We deserve a new class of villain.
Where?
Quote the Joker.
Where is like where's Khan, the Klingon who quotes Shakespeare in like the 25th century? It's deep into the future. He's flying a fucking spaceship and he's not human and he's quoting Hamlet.
And he's dripped out, like the
yeah.
outfit.
It's
way better.
Y'all ever listen to Rick James?
Yeah.
Rick James wrote a song called Mary Jane, and it is about smoking weed. And that song has instrumental composition, multi-layered. There's a brass section. It has breakdowns. I mean, and this is a song about getting fucked up. The effort and the class and the expertise that went into that to write a song about weed. I don't know. Today I could put a couple prompts in and fart out 25,000 songs about getting weed in a bunch of different genres,
Wouldn't
right?
have a Rick James brass section.
No! This man spent God knows how many hours working on this multi-layered, complicated composition about getting fucked up. I don't know. I think I'm definitely digressing a little bit, but
people need to make art about what inspires them, and apparently Rick James got inspired by getting fucked up. You know what I mean? But
like I think it's irrelevant what inspires you. Show me the effort. When we see good comedy, man, that's hard to do. The really best comedy, they've been working at that for those fresh new comedians that you see. That dude's been hitting comedy clubs for 15 years and getting bottles thrown at him.
Get good at anything.
Yes, it's these influencers that are being thrust on us. This happened at the Oscars this year. They had a bunch of influencers come in and interview people, and it was a disaster because these people did not spend years apprenticing and working on journalism and how to ask questions. So they're just clout chasing fools. And, doing that to like Dame Judi Dench is not great, man. So I share the optimism here of the counterculture that is arising, which actually might just be a return to culture. But yeah, I don't want to be a world leader. You guys don't make me.
Can I present 3 things that I like from my perspective? And I'd love feedback from the two of you on what you think of these. I would say if I could, do 3 things immediately. The first thing that I would do is focus on equality of opportunity, but not equality of outcome. I think that that's what everybody needs, is they need the same starting line. But I think that they get us fighting because they think that they get us believing that everyone is going to finish at the same time and with the same accolades and with all of that. And that's not possible. It's never shown that it's possible in human history. But that doesn't mean that we can't make sure that the starting line is exactly the same for everybody. And that is possible. That is achievable in many ways. And I think that starts with kids. I think you build a lot less bombs and you build a lot more schools, and all of a sudden you probably start seeing things, that's at least a decent place to start. Then I would say the next thing that we've got to figure out as a culture is we've got to figure out how there is a natural pathway that you can take things that have been traumatic to you, and through reflection and through deep work and process, you can find ways in your psyche to understand that trauma has actually also created the version of you that you are right now. And if you can fall in love with the version of you that you are right now, it means that you have had to go through a transformation where you took that trauma and you turned it into gratitude. And I think that that's a really important journey that we got to figure out how people can go on, is to take all the things that have been accumulating as trauma and figure out how we recognize that it also has created something that's beautiful. I also want to say that I would rather all kids not have to go through trauma to figure that out. But for those of us who have already gone through it, we don't have a choice. We got to figure it out. We got to get on the other side of it.
The toughest part, right, is like, I know you need to experience pain, but oh God, I don't want you to experience pain.
I agree. And then the last thing that I think could make a big difference is that we recognize that community is the gift. That being alone has its privileges and it has opportunities to it, but the connections that you make with other people is probably how we should actually think about wealth. That wealth is much better measured in the amount of access that we've had to giving our true selves to other people, and to be able to accept other people's true self as something that we don't judge them, and we love them because they gave us a window into who they actually are. All three of those things feel attainable to me. It doesn't feel like those are things that we can't all access and touch. It just, we haven't incentivized those things. And so, I don't know. That's my 2 cents. I'm hoping
you're
that we can make
100% on that. Of how much of what worries us and makes us upset is a contrivance.
It appears that even from, like, if I look at my life, which is just like such a teeny blip on the radar, but from my life, I grew up watching television shows when I was a kid that made all dads look dopey and all moms have this sort of like, you know, in the beginning it was kind of like cook and clean and take care of kids. And then I watched it change, where they then told us that like that was no longer the relationship that men and women, and that men and men or women and women should have. And they recreated the version of all of that for us in the way that we see it. And some of it was beautiful and some of it was not. Like, I accept that. That's what art is. I'm intelligent enough to be able to watch art and be able to figure that out. But I think that we have to have a collective agreement with each other that life can be whatever the fuck you want it to be. Wake up every day and make it that. It's your choice, and every choice comes with a consequence that we've got to be able to, we got to have. So if you want to be a dopey dad, just expect to have dopey kids. If you want to be a dopey dad, expect to be treated like a dope. But if you don't want to have dopey kids or be treated like a dope, wake up every day and figure out what you got to do with your time and your choices so that no one could treat you like a dope, because no one would ever get the impression that you are one. Like, these are choices that we have every day. We've got to take ownership and lead ourselves before we can ever expect somebody to make big changes.
Fathers describe it that way many, many times, that it is not a choice. It is a series of thousands of choices every day.
100%.
It's the constant making choices, choosing, and not all of them are right, but then readjusting. And I saw it in my own father. One of my dad had a lot of flaws that I think were kind of societal for guys born in the 50s, you know? Sure. But he was emotionally very available, and he talked to us, you know, in a way that it was still a very much father-son relationship. We weren't like buds or anything, but we were respected and friendly, and I genuinely liked the guy, liked spending time with him, because this was something that was a little bit different about my dad than his peers. Was whenever he talked to me, on a lot of levels, we didn't have a lot in common. And a lot of the things that come out of my mouth, he didn't get, or they were just like, whatever. He never sought to understand what I was into. He just wanted to talk about it. It was the joy of hearing his son speak with passion and interest about something. Gives a shit what it is. When you're a kid, most of what you're talking about is just utter nonsense. You're describing a weird cartoon to somebody who was born before the civil rights era started. And it's like, sure. I remember my grandfather in the 90s took me to see Empire Strikes Back in the theater. And this was a guy who fought in World War II, and he fought the Nazis. He fought the Imperial Japanese. He went through the Depression. He was like half deaf. He was a principal in a dangerous neighborhood. He survived like cancer, all this crazy shit, right?
Badass.
And yeah, it was a real motherfucker. And like, we come out of the movies and he's just got this look on his face. And he just goes, that was the loudest damn thing I ever seen in my life. And later on, he said, was that supposed to be some kind of bear? You know? And I realized, what the hell was going through this man's mind?
Yeah.
Having seen and done the things he had seen and going, what?
You're right. Like
He was also a science teacher, so like I'm making him watch a movie where there are like full fireballs in the vacuum of space, and he's sitting there like,
yeah, and it must also be like, it must be really interesting for somebody who's gone through all of those things to watch something that is so clearly pretend
but was
and be like, and everybody's enthralled with it, and you're like, you guys haven't seen enough to understand that that's just somebody dressed up like a bear.
there was this cool thing about my grandpa and my dad where they could talk to somebody whose life experience was so different from theirs, never make me feel like a weirdo. Whereas a lot of people from that generation, when they'd be like, what are you into? 3 words into it, they're like, well, that's stupid.
Right.
Or like, I don't get, what even is that? It sounds like nonsense, you know? And you're like, well, I like it.
Which is so sad because
It crushes your enthusiasm. Yeah.
well, not only does it do that, but it, you know, this again came up last night, but it's like, if you're vulnerable with somebody, if you put your full self out there, right, and they reject you, does that say more about your full self, or does it say more about the person who's choosing not to see you?
That person has no imagination.
I think that's, you know, that's one of the things that we need to hold on to, is that when you put your full self out there and somebody doesn't like it, you just learned something very valuable about that person that gives you your time back to no longer need to waste it with them.
Exactly.
They can go live their life
It's
any way they
okay
want.
for
but-
them not to like it. It's okay for you to be different than them. It's not okay to make each other feel shitty about it.
It might just be the reality that some people want to make people feel shitty about stuff. And so the end is like, okay, well, how do I not feel shitty about
So
me?
much more fun to make people feel good about stuff.
I agree. That's how I like to go too. All right, I've got the last question. I don't know exactly where we are, Oliver, but I'm guessing that we're either at 3 hours or hovering around 3 hours.
At about 250.
Oof.
So-
Okay, so we got a last question. This is a good way for us to be able to get to something, hopefully, that feels real for the 3 of us, to end with some consequence. And here's the question. What is your potential?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Potentially.
Dude, man. I like you, dude. You're cheesy.
There's so much potential. How can I even answer this?
Any way you want.
My potential?
May I ask this in a different way? Would you be up for that?
No.
Okay.
No, I want to let this one simmer.
Okay.
Can we try to harmonize? Vocally? Do.
Ray. I might invoke the 48-hour rule on that one.
There was potential energy there. Believe it or not. I couldn't even like decide if that was all going to go down or not. How did you feel when we did that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Felt self-conscious about doing it. And then once I did it, I felt pretty comfortable with it immediately afterwards. So I appreciate that you took a moment that would caught us everybody off guard, and you use that to your advantage. But what I want to know is, when you envision the future version of yourself, maybe you see yourself at my age, at 44.
Whoa.
What do you think your potential is looking across at me?
I got my hands in the earth.
Okay.
I've been surfing less. Maybe I've got a little Grom with me, like, a kid or two. And I definitely don't have the love of my life, because I always seem to fuck that up. But I see myself just keeping it simple, living off the land, in harmony with nature. The religion that I follow, and I don't install into my family or the people around me, but I advise and follow, is that the sun comes up and gives you this much opportunity, and then the moon comes up and gives you dreams. And that's, isn't that sweet to hear?
Mhm.
It sounds like a little sweet story, but it's true. I think I waste my potential when I worry, or when I fret about what I'm gonna be. I like we were saying earlier, when you're worrying about what's gonna come of this, you lose the gifts that are already happening. And hopefully by that age, I've realized, or I've lived through just being content with what's around me. And say we were all to do that, things would change. I get overwhelmed when I try to change everything. So I hope by then I've grown comfortable with, myself. Hopefully my back is in one piece. And I would like to have a community where people can come with all these confusions and like all these worries that I had too, kind of like how you're doing, Brett. And they can speak to me, and I'm not like a guru who gives them the answer and here you go, eat this and sit beneath the sapling tree. But I want to get people back on their feet.
Mhm.
And this happened to me. I had no potential. I was playing video games all the time. And by no potential, I mean I had no potential energy. I was a mess.
Mhm.
I went woofing in Hawaii, and a couple other states. You can do it anywhere in the world, though. And that's when someone believed in me. That's when I was fed. That's when I had responsibility and worked. I started taking care of myself. I was in the sun. I was going to bed at a decent hour. This is all because someone believed in me, and I had some sort of purpose.
Mhm.
So in my 40s, which is 20 years from now, goodness, I would want to.
Don't worry, dude. It happens.
It happens, and when it's happening, I want to be content, not worrying too much about what I'm doing, but watching younger lives and people maybe older than me or the same around me, that I want them to feel like I believe in them and they believe in themselves, and I want them to be fed, watered, just like the garden is. It's simple, okay,
Beautiful.
but it's possible.
I see it.
That's extremely possible.
yeah,
I
when
think
you
you're
say
already on the track for
100%.
that. Just seems like a natural extension of the person I met today.
Yeah. And I'll also just say, like if you come across an opportunity where you need somebody else to believe in you and believe in that vision, like come see me. I'd love to hear more about what you're trying to do and make sure that I throw any weight I can behind you getting there. Like, thanks for sharing that. That was really
Yeah.
powerful.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of sustainable ideas that can sustain and nurture your spirit,
Mm-hmm.
because that's really where the strength comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And let's fuck up. And we know nothing about. When you know nothing about something, that's when you are embarrassed to ask a question. I feel like I want to always feel like I can ask a question. I want other people to feel like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And not be like recorded on a 10-second life-ruining video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or just play the fool. I would want to keep playing the fool at that age, but also have, in that time, played enough to, get my bearings straight.
It's very, very clear that you are not a fool. So if that is the way that you learn about other people, is to allow them to think that way about you, so that you can learn about them, in the process, that seems like a pretty clever thing. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was very. There was a lot there that I think people are going to get a lot from.
Where did you see yourself when you were younger? Across the table.
I think the number one way that I visualized myself was more in the way that I saw the family that I would have. I think I always deeply admired my dad, and I'd never really thought about my career as something that I aspired to. I aspired to be a dad. And then I ended up living a life over the last 20 plus years that was completely different than the way that I would have envisioned it. I went through a divorce. I have raised my kids separate from their mom for a long parts of that. And the truth was that it both crushed me and made me, right? And so over the next 20 years, everything that you just said, the reason why I thought it was so profound and beautiful is that you didn't describe it as events that were going to happen. You described it as the character that you were going to land with, and your ability to be able to slow down. And a lot of what I heard from you when you were saying it was less about who you were going to be and more about your potential to pay whoever you become forward to someone else. And yeah, the difference between who I thought I was going to be when I was your age and who I am right now is pretty dramatic. And yet I'm very proud of who I am right now. And but mainly because of my ambition for what I would like to do in service of others, and very little to do with what I've been able to accomplish to sit in the seat in the first place, which I think makes us partners in the future that we both want to see.
Totally, dude.
Yeah.
Are you feeling uplifted already?
Always.
This is mutual belief.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's powerful in small settings. But can you imagine when we're all believing in each other?
Well, here's I would love to stress test this with you guys. At any point, if the three of us needed to do something together, I don't see the math in how the three of us could accomplish any task better in friction than we could in alignment. There is never going to be a world where we are more successful to reach outcomes by being against each other than there is for us to figure out ways that we can be aligned to figure out how we reach that. So this illusion that we should somehow be against one another is only to the optimization of the few, never to the many. On the other hand, if we agree with consent that we want to go out and compete with each other, then let's go compete, and let's be competitors, and let's try to beat one another, and let's try to let that part of our nature be there in a way that is healthy, because we both agreed that we also need that.
Sure.
That you can't go through life and everything be okay for everybody all the time. Sometimes you got to go through life and you got to figure out how you learn something from winning and losing, which requires competition. What are you thinking?
Wow. I'm extremely humbled by your answer, by the way. When you talk, you really understood the question, I feel like. Because I've heard that question asked a lot, and it usually starts with, well, I want to have this house and this thing and this much money and this in the bank. And you went right to the kind of person you wanted to be. So that was very humbling and lovely to hear. I, strangely enough, at 46, feel a greater sense of potential than I did when I was in my 20s. I feel that as a younger man, I had a lot of knowledge. I'm an intellectually curious person. I'm a voracious reader. But the 20 years of living and all the pain and trauma and adversity that came with it forged me into a much better. I'm not different. I'm not a different person. I am a more complete and realized version of who I was. A lot of that is I married a lovely partner, a woman who saw that polished gem underneath all the grime and helped bring out the better parts of myself. I feel like I have a lot of potential. I'd like to ideally I'd like to have been published a little bit more, because I do have a dream of encountering someone younger than me
Mhm.
who has read something I've written and it affected them. To hear the story of how something I came up with moved another person, because I have felt that. I feel that all the time. I feel deep moments of humanity and connection through literature and through art and through music, and this shared, oh my God, you were hurting when you did this, and I know what it's like to hurt. I would love, oh my gosh, I would love for just some like, I don't know, some like nerdy kiddo to come up to me and be like, oh my God, it's you. I read this thing. That would be the best. And I would like to continue on the path I've been the last 10 years or so of just trying to be more compassionate, constantly challenging my preconceptions, and to maintain the humility of I really like being wrong. I like it when my biases get blown out of the water. I love it when I have an idea about somebody and they totally prove me wrong, because I'm like, all this cool new stuff I get to learn, and I'm now open to this. So I don't think we should be afraid of being wrong. You do have to like own up to it, and there's a little bit of fear and shame there, but you get past that initial thing and it's like a whole new world of cool shit to learn and maybe friends to experience. I just, yeah, I would like to be a kind old man who doesn't fall into the falls of like bitterness. I don't want to hurt so much in life that I forget to share joy.
Yeah.
Now, my unserious answer, really quick, because I have thought about this a lot. My retirement plan is I want to be that guy in the horror movie right in the beginning, right? The one that warns teenagers about the murder cabin. The problem with those guys is they're fucking gross. You jump out of the bushes as an old creepy man into a van full of co-ed, and you're like, don't go up to the murder cabin. No one's gonna listen. I would be like, hi, just want, I smell good. I've showered. I'm shaved. I'm an old guy, but I'm like, I just want to warn you kids that the cabin you're about to, everyone who's ever gone there gets butchered by a guy in a mask. So here's some local B&Bs, and like I give them a list. My wife comes out with some food because they're always like, you can't go up there, there's a monster. And then like,
They don't listen.
someone's going to listen to that guy. And you're watching the movie and they're all getting killed. And you're like, you should have listened to that guy, but would you have? So yeah, I want to provide that benefit.
Well, I deeply believe in your potential to be able to tell young co-eds to not get killed.
No, but
in a
honestly,
murder
I
shack.
just my goal in life is to be a joyful old man.
Yeah.
I have met joyful old men in my life who experience mountains of pain.
Yeah.
And the joy that they felt, like the old guys who would look at me and how you doing? Well, geez, I'm still here. Like genuine joy at still being able to experience their great grandchildren or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Those were the old people that I still think about, and that's what I want to become. I do think I have the potential to be like the weird old pothead grandpa. It's like
I have found
nice.
you to be
Totally.
very, very joyful the whole time you're here.
Thank you.
And I do think that both of you, like between the two things that you were saying, there might be some like central truth there, which is that that life gives us the ability to make a choice, which is that our time can either become a burden or our time can always be an opportunity. And every day that you wake up, you get to make that choice over and over and over again. And the more often you choose, hopefully, the more often you choose opportunity, the more opportunities emerge within your life that you can start to take advantage of. I'd just like to say, for the sake of this conversation, where we created a conversation that was all about characters and stories, and we were just sitting around this table nonstop for over 3 hours having this conversation. We didn't know each other before we stepped into this
worried
room.
about that.
That's
Yeah.
true.
we didn't have any reference point other than Oliver knew you, and you know what I mean, that we had a little bit of a connection there, but we just sat down for 3 hours and I enjoyed both of you thoroughly. That was a really interesting conversation. It was really interesting, different perspectives on different things. I mostly I'm grateful that it feels like we are continuing to prove that when you open up a conversation and you talk about the way you think, and you don't necessarily go right to what you think, it opens us up lots of opportunities to be able to feel peaceful between us. And I think that the more we're able to find peace in these kinds of environments, the more likely it becomes that peace is available to us everywhere. So thanks, guys. I appreciate the dedication to what we're doing here and participating. I hope both of you come back for lots more conversations. They're always interesting and they always change and they're always dynamic. But
I've
you
been
guys are
informed
awesome.
security is on its way for me. So, you know,
Well, we only have like 12 listeners. So right now you're probably in really good shape that you won't have to worry.
I think it's just Oliver in a riot mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys, I don't know how you feel. I say we wrap the episode and go eat as much food as we possibly can because I'm
Thank you
starving.
so much.
I'm starving.
It's tough being world leaders.